Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of epic racing action in the UK SimRacing community. Sunday GT3 Championship Season 17 as brought to you on the premier SimRacing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing and proudly hosted by none other than SimRacing International. It is time for our penultimate round of the season, round 9 of 10, and for it we have made our way to Italy, which will play host for our final 2 rounds. First up, we have made our way to the Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli, a circuit opened in 1972 for the purposes of hosting racing on 2 wheels, but over time it's been discovered that this is a circuit that can be just as capable for those racing on 4 wheels. And it's core a 2.61 mile course which sees drivers make the way through some rather rapid fire direction changes, sweeping bends, open length hairpins and also extended straights. And whilst it lacks elevation change with its wide width, it is a circuit that has its own unique challenges, because to do well here at Misano you've got to be ready to be cognizant of the fact that the driver may try to dive up the inside into many of its corners, but there's some corners you do not dive into, and figuring out which ones are the right places to attack versus where it's the right place to sit back, it's all part of the story. But before you even get to the very end of the race, of course, there's always the big fault of strategy, and with track position around here being difficult to attack on and also easier to defend, it may be the situation whereby a good bit of strategy can leap you into the lead and you may never look back. But who exactly will put the pieces together, whether it be over a single lap, over the race distance, or indeed in the pit lane? That's exactly what we're here to find out as we get ready to go racing today. But where exactly are my manners as I welcome you to this post-round broadcast from circuit side as you catch up with all the racing action from round number 9, which occurred on Sunday the 8th of March 2026, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live this evening on Monday the 9th of March. That means we do not know how the current qualifying session is ongoing or what the results of the upcoming race will be, and we're going to be exploring that just as close as possible to the raw live viewing experiences you guys and girls will receive tuning in from home today. And indeed you can catch all this racing action on our official YouTube channel at SimRacing International, and that's at youtube.com, and search for SimRacing International SRI, and make sure you subscribe if you want to stay up to date with all the latest action on a weekly basis here at the SimRacing International community as we continue to grow throughout 2026. In the corner TV, if you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll bring you all your racing action as it unfolds over the entirety of the season. And what a season it's been so far, and with 2 rounds to go, things are definitely on a boiling point. Will they boil over, or will they cool down and simmer up in preparation for our season finale? Well, let's find out as we take you for a trip in time and bring you up to speed after 8 rounds of racing. And so, as we can see, we started all the way back at the very beginning of January, but now we are making our way deep into March. It's crazy to think that 2 months have flown on by. But last time out, on the 1st of March, we were in Germany at the Nürburgring Grosser Preisstreckers Grand Prix layout. And there, in mixed conditions, we got to see a complete mix-up in the proceedings. The weather, well, it was a very interesting weather storm, because we got to see a very dry practice session, also a cloudy qualifying session, but no rain came until 20 minutes into the race. And it meant that for the majority, if not all of our drivers, they all opted to start on slicks, and everyone had to dive into the pit lane before the halfway point to go onto the wet tyres, which were the optimum call all the way to the end of the race, because when the rain stopped with only 15 minutes to go, the circuit started to dry up, but it didn't dry up quickly enough, and therefore it meant the racing was definitely very narrow with regards to the racing lines available to our drivers. But in the elite class, we got to see a change in the lead on several occasions, but the driver who took victory in the elite class in the end was none other than William Arneson, who then brought home his 4th win of the season. But when you looked on paper at his qualifying session, it was nothing to shout home about. You wouldn't have expected him to be the winner, given the fact he qualified 11th overall and 9th in class, but by the end of lap 1, he'd leapt his way all the way up into 3rd place with a rather aggressive open lap, knowing he needed to get the job done, and he settled in for the ride until the rain came. And when the rain arrived, we opted to pit 1 lap later than the leaders at the time, Andrea Miata and Jakob Stofko. But as a result of pitting later, he was able to maximise his use of the wet tyre and quickly catch up to them. Taking the lead eventually, Sonny Richardson also came up behind him, and it was then a three-way fight between Arneson and also Miato and Simnor, where Jakob Stofko unfortunately ended up in an instant that saw him had to drop down the field and retire from the race. But over the last couple of laps, William Arneson's tyres started to give up, and it was Richard Simnor's opportunity to try and steal the win away. The defending champion, who's yet to take a win this season, was hoping to take his first win, but William Arneson proving to make his car too wide on a circuit that was definitely narrow with regards to its racing line, and it was Arneson's victory to take, with Andrea Miato finishing in 3rd. Meanwhile, in the Pro class, we got to see another win, a well-earned 2nd win of the season for Matthew Croft, who started 4th in class, and on paper at least, didn't look as though he was going to have an opportunity to take the win, given he qualified in 4th what was almost half a second slower than Maxime Philippard, the pole sitter of the class, and even so, the second place driver in the class, Kyle Roy, proved to be the best part of 1.5 tenths faster. But lo and behold, drama on the grid. Maxime Philippard's Porsche not able to go racing, unfortunately, due to a technical issue, and suddenly the class all got promoted up one position. And we saw in the early stage of the race, it stayed relatively settled, but as soon as the rain arrived, Matthew Croft was absolutely in his element and took the lead from Kyle Roy in the pit stops, and after that, he never looked back. And then finally, in the interclass, well, qualifying was incredibly tight. We had a top four separated by only 2.5 tenths, a quartet of none other than Robin Pownier, Andre Montine, Craig Hewlett and Nick Parks. And well, it was Andre Montine on pole, but it completely changed around as soon as the race started. Montine losing the lead quite early on, and we got to see in the end was a very close fight between Craig Hewlett and Nick Parks, with Nick Parks' Ford Mustang absolutely looking on fire. But where exactly did Robin Pownier come into the mix? Was as soon as the rain arrived, suddenly the rain absolutely galvanised the Mercedes driver, and he made the most of it with his rivals making mistakes. He then took the lead off of Craig Hewlett and was never going to look back in the end after Craig Hewlett had a huge moment where he'll never be looking back in anger as he just missed the barriers into turn number one with a big slide under braking, and Robin Pownier took the lead, walked away of it and took a vital second win of the season. So those are the big headline stories from the Nürburgring, and we are here today then for round number 9 and the Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli. It's Grand Prix layout, we playing host, and it's going to be sunny skies today indeed for the remainder of the season. No sign of rain in sight here, and therefore could it be a little bit more to the norm, or will we see things shaken up even more, even with more settled conditions? Well, that's what we're going to see. But as we come into this round, of course, we told you who the winners were last time out, but who exactly is leading the way in the championship standings? We begin with the Elite Championship standings, and here we can see it is Andrea Miato who leads currently on 630 points, 26 ahead of William Arneson. However, the theory is right now that this is becoming a two-way fight for the championship. Should results go a particular way today and Reece Saunders is not able to create a huge upset and take victory, and Miato and Arneson do not drop valuable points, then suddenly when we go to our season finale at Imola, it will be between the Italian Andrea Miato, the home hero, and it'll be to Norwegian of William Arneson to try and dethrone him. Indeed, the differences are striking when you consider that Andrea Miato may not have as many wins, but with 3 wins and a whole multitude of podiums, including 5 podiums back-to-back. Right now, the Tartan Redstech driver is looking the favourite in theory. Now, if William Arneson can find a bit more consistency out there to go with his 4 wins, he could yet very much be leading going into the season finale or dead even. And Reece Saunders, meanwhile, in 3rd place there for Altitude 3M Esports. Well, last time out was a 6th place finish. Unfortunately, swapping car by accident, the Altitude 3M team bringing a BMW M4 Evo to the circuit, not his favoured Ford Mustang, and therefore it does mean that he is now locked into a different car for the remainder of the season, and he cannot switch away from it. So that's going to prove even more challenging there for Reece Saunders. Now he's got an uphill battle, and that's before you consider that Henrik Rees-Strand sits in 4th. Now, when you look at Henrik Rees-Strand, that 7th place, you're probably thinking right now, well, surely he didn't have an exceptional race. You would be wrong. He was the man who managed to barrel roll his Mercedes over, well, in fact, not his Mercedes, his Ford Mustang, let's get it correct, but he barrel rolled it over at turn number 1 in the wet conditions, going completely sideways into the gravel, and the sun slowing off one side of the car meant the car rolled onto its roof, and he was at the time contesting the win of the race. So that was one of the big headlines as well that we didn't mention earlier on. The Norwegian driver now seeing a 7th place there that definitely was not representative of the fact he put so much pace to the Nürburgring, but once again thwarted, albeit by bad fortune. Metro Antonio Pasquarello, meanwhile, sits in 5th there, a further, 58 points behind, and the Tata Redstick driver right now with that 4th place finish last time out. Well, maybe not a podium, but some valuable points for him in his Drivers' Championship campaign, and you'll see how it affects the Team's Championship very shortly. Harvey Wheeler, well, he had a solid day, a 5th place there for Freewheeler Racing by Phoenix, another solid haul of points. Indeed, continuing a run of top 5s that's been going on for some time, excluding the 1 DNF and the 6th place in the run-up to it, although that's an 8th place there, now that I double-check my eyesight. And then we do have Max Wheeler, meanwhile, fellow family member, sat in 7th there with his own BMW and the Freewheeler Racing driver with another 8th place finish last time out on 378 points. He's inching away from Richard Simnor to a degree. Although he was until last time out, because the DCW Racing driver, of course, bringing home that 2nd place, only his 2nd podium of the season, and they'll be hoping that acts as really the in route now to be able to find even more podiums before this season is said and done. Sadly, it does mean that his title defence now is over. He cannot be champion for the remainder of the season, even if all of his rivals were to retire in front of him, but it does mean his season 16 crown will be handed over come the end of this season. Hayden Miller sits in 9th and was not on the grid last time out, but you hope to see him back today, looking to fire on all cylinders for Phoenix Racing. And it's Salvatore Ferrandino who rounds off your top 10 there for Tartan Restech and not on the grid for the last couple of rounds. Will we see him back today? Hopefully we will. Jakub Stovko, well, that non-finish not representative of what he was able to bring to the table in Germany. It was unfortunate that he did have to retire on lap 22, but the Canadian driver, knowing right now, he's got to take the confidence in the fact he does have podium challenging pace, particularly in the wet. And Kasper Rotner completes your top 12 of the elite class on 210 points. So that's how the top 12 of the elite stand. Now coming to the pro class, and here we can see it is Kyle Roy who leads the way. Intriguingly, for the Miracle Group M esports driver, a fourth place last time out. His run of podiums, 5 in a row, has stopped there. But will he return to the podium stake? Can he return to a win? Because the problem he has right now is that whilst he does have still an advantage of 52 points, the gap is gradually narrowing in terms of pace between him and the next two drivers. Sean Connor, well, the Connor Bros Racing driver, making his way to second once again. His only second place finish of the seconds this season. And right now, the American driver in his McLaren definitely proven to be very quick. And whilst he did struggle in qualifying in the dry at the Nürburgring, as soon as the rain arrived, he really was a weapon and he absolutely charged after those places. And the American driver will be hoping right now that today can be the day where he really does hunt down perhaps the second win of the season, or at least tightens the gap there to Kyle Roy. But don't forget Nathan Anstis, only 2 points behind, and it was a dramatic day for him. The day of damage limitation. Now, qualifying was not great. 10th place in class. But when he went to the grid, he had to then start from the pit lane. So there was an issue with the car, a setup issue with the car. He had qualifying fuel in, and at the very last moment, he had to go to the pit lane before it was too late. In doing so, he was then able to make a recovery to 6th place, albeit benefiting from several mistakes from his rivals just as much as his outright pace. And the UKSimRacing International driver knows now, falling to 3rd for the first time in a long time, he needs to go on the rebound. Matthew Croft is a further 68 points behind. And the man who took his second win last time out for Axis Simsport, could he potentially really throw a spanner in the works to everybody right now and adding more wins to his run? And indeed, if he's able to do so, he may yet be the kingmaker here, as whilst he is within reach, he is an outsider for the title. So you'd theorise right now he could be the one who sees the points swing in favour of one driver or another, but never rule him out. Behind him by 36 points, it's Ross Young, the Scotsman there for Dexterous Motorsports, and an 8th place finish last time out. Things didn't go quite right in the wet weather, and therefore he'll be hoping that the sunny skies today can bring him back to the 4A. If not, Steve Hobbs is closing him down there, only 38 points behind there in the Sim Coach Ferrari or Ford Mustang there. Indeed, he's been in both cars this season, and right now the Sim Coach driver has proven to be very quick, and he's grinding pace with now 3 top 5s in a row. Darren Sharples, he sits in 7th there for Old Dudes in Cars, and he's ever reliant, albeit the wet weather did not suit him and his Ford Mustang last time out, and he managed to finish just inside the top 10, with Rob Windsor a further 100 points behind there for UKSimRacing International, when non-finish last time out at the Nürburgring cost him some major momentum. In fact, so much so, that first podium last time out for Eduardo Royes for Axis Simsport, the Spaniard absolutely cheerful with that. Well, I can tell you one thing right now, he's definitely on a mission to move forward, and could he potentially dethrone Rob Windsor from 8th place today? Hendrik Zilka sits in 10th place there on 218 points, a further 60 adrift, and the Old Dudes in Cars driver has the pressure of Maxime Philippart, only 4 points behind, and you've got to imagine with the gassed up motorsport driver, if it had not been that retirement on the grid, could we have seen him take the victory and potentially leapt into the top 10 and moving very quickly in amongst all the top 10 drivers? Well, hopefully we'll get to see him do well today and not have bad luck strike once again, because otherwise it'll be 3 non-finishes in a row. But from the Belgian to the Briton there, Ashley Brooks, it's only 14 points, and the Axis Simsport driver had a bit of a rough day in the office last time out at the Nürburgring, and we'll be hoping for a much more straightforward one today. Then to the Interclass we come, the last of our Drivers' Championships, and it's Andrew Montine who leads now with 5th place last time out, and what a backwards day it was. After a brilliant pole lap, the wet weather conditions definitely held him back, as did a poor start in the race, and therefore right now with that 5th place finish there, he is crawling his way towards the crown, but Robin Powney meanwhile is sprinting towards it with a second win, a very vital win for the Sim Coach driver. Now, 3 podiums on the run, and if you exclude his absent round, he does have 6 podiums in a row. Well, right now, he's definitely looking to be the man with the momentum on his side. But will the change of conditions favour the Axis Simsport driver, or can Sim Coach's Mercedes driver continue this momentum? Craig Hewlett, don't rule him out either. Currently now 4th in terms of that finishing position, but 3rd in the championship. And the Axis Simsport driver, understandably, after just missing out on pole by a slender margin, he was hoping to go for a podium, if not the win. But unfortunately, when the rain came, it did all go wrong with that big slide under braking into turn 1, and that's what gifted the win to Robin Powney and saw him finish in 4th in the end, because a further error on the final lap dropped him from what was running inside the podium positions down to 4th, and for Craig Hewlett, he needs to iron out the mistakes, but that could definitely be attributed as a tagline for his season so far. If it were not for the mistakes, you'd imagine he'd be on 4 wins at this point, if not 5 of them. But still, Martin Kenyon, another driver who you would argue, if it were not for the mistakes, where could he be? The Dexterous Motorsports driver having a stint midway through the race at Nürburgring in his Lamborghini, where he was the quickest driver overall. There was just one problem. He was a lap down on the leaders who were past him at the time when he had the pace to lap 1 second lap faster than anybody else out there. But still, a non-finish, and he'll definitely learn from that on 442 points. He's now only 32 ahead of Grant Miller with another solid top 10, and the Phoenix Racing driver has Nick Parks closing on in there, and the privateer definitely one to watch out for, and that 9th place finish last time out in Germany not representative of the fact he had race-winning pace. Tom Wheeler, he had a solid finish in third in the end, managed to make sure he stayed under the radar and not make any mistakes, and that's why the three-wheeler racing by Phoenix Dry now into 7th there, ahead of Alexander Vingmark, and then from the Beta Frost Dry, it's David Young who sits in 9th place for Logistical Nightmare Racing, ahead of Shane Cotton who completes your top 10 for Phoenix Racing. Outside the top 10, it's Daniel Pays and Shane Connor having a dismal day in the office, whereas Daniel Pays, meanwhile, returned to the podium. It has been a long time since we've seen that, with 2 non-finishes prior, but the old dudes in cars drive, making sure he hasn't forgotten what the way to winning to the podium feels like. But that's how your standings stand then, after 8 rounds of racing. And coming to the teams championships, well, what we can see is that here it is Axis Simsport who lead the way. In particular, Axis Simsport Z. They have made a furthering of their lead on 1,240 points, almost now 100 clear of Beta Frost, and the delta between them is the fact they do owe it to Beta Frost struggles as much as their ability to secure top 5 finishes, and therefore that's how they're growing a slight gap. However, the bigger concern for the top 2 is who's now in third. Simcoach, they move from 4th to 3rd, and with the win for Robin Powney and solid points for Hobbs, it means they're quickly closing out on the top 2. How they are bringing with them three-wheeler racing by Phoenix, who've moved from 6th to 4th, and with the solid set of performances, particularly with the 3rd place in Inter for Tom, and also the 5th place in Elite for Harvey, can they now potentially close the gap to 3rd place today? Dexterous Motorsports Car, or in fact Zemex there, as we got our team names correct, they've fallen from 3rd to 5th, and they do seem as though they're having a bit of a tough time at the moment, but they'll be hoping they can turn that in a bit different direction. Again, the fact that right now for Ross Young and Martin Kenyon, things are definitely not quite looking up, but then again, it was the wet weather that perhaps turned things down, and they'll be hoping the sunshine can turn things around very nicely. UKSimRacing Manish, they are a further 40 points behind there, and right now the British team, hoping that they can try and make the dream work. Again, the fact they've fallen from 5th to 6th, but they're still ahead there of Miracle Group M Esports, who in turn, with the difficulties for Jakob Stofko, they missed out on a landslide opportunity to jump their way right into the top 3. Tartan Restech, well, they've now definitely solidified their foundations once again. Were 3rd and 4th in Elite last time out for Miato and none other than what was the teammate there of, I do believe, Ferrandino, and now they've got to try and think about how they move forward from there, with Phoenix Racing sitting in 9th place, head of Connor. Bros Racing round off your top 10, and we're outside the top 10 in length for the moment. Non-screen, it's Axis and Sport Y who've moved from 12th to 11th, but with only 14 points between them and 10th place, can they finally break their way in, especially after their first podium in the Pro Class for Eduardo Royes last time out? Well, that and plenty more we're waiting to see. But speaking of things to see, here's an overview of our circuit for today then. It is the Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli. Like the Grand Prix circuit, as our drivers get ready to take on this circuit, located in the municipality of Misano Adriatico in the Rimini province of the Emilia-Romagna region of Italy, one of the many circuits in northern Italy. Indeed, you don't have to go too far to find several circuits, including Imola and Monza around it as well. 2.61 miles in length, or 4.20 kilometres depending on your preference of units, but what never changes is the number of corners, 16 in total, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track maps contained within it. And the overall nature of the circuit is one where it's all about carrying momentum from the corners and being ready for those quick fire direction changes. Now, with very little elevation on the circuit as well, there's no real road camber that you can abuse, although it should be noted several of these corners do have a slight dip in the road going towards the apex, and that's something our drivers need to be aware of, in the fact they can attack the apex a little bit more aggressively as other circuits around the world. But indeed, the theme here is all about corner speed. There are some straights, particularly the run down the back stretch all the way from turn 10 up towards 13, but even there it's got kinks in the straight, and therefore you've got to be mindful of the fact that as you're approaching the heavier braking zone at turn number 13, it's about positioning the car well and making sure you've got all the weight in the right spot, otherwise the car can go on around and go to the gravel. But who exactly will find themselves heading towards the gravel traps, and who will be as smooth as water or as fluid as water to come away victorious here? Well, that's what we're about to find out, ladies and gentlemen, as we make our way back to circuit side and see how they're getting on in the final throws of the qualifying session. As we get the lovely sonorous roar there by the old dudes in cars, Ford Mustangs coming on past. Well, who's currently the quickest in qualifying, I hear you ask? Well, the answer to that question is going to be none other than Andrea Miato. Right now, looking to be the quickest there by almost 3 tenths over Henrik Riestrand. And, well, understandably, the Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo driver of Miato, hoping he can close out the deal here with not too many rounds remaining. Albeit, with the fact he's been kept under honest pressure by William Arneson, well, Miato right now would know that a win today would put him in a very nice position for the season finale. But then again, when he's got stiff competition from the likes here of the Beta Frost pair, of which we are focusing on Henrik Riestrand at the moment, it is going to be far from easy. The Ford Mustang driver right now definitely proving once again that he might be the slightly faster driver in qualifying, but it's been William Arneson who's been the stronger driver over the race pace with the better fortune. And well, some question marks, of course, being none other than what would it have been right now in the standings if it were not for the pair of them having that coming together at Monza combined much earlier in the season. Could it have been much more straightforward? Could we be level between what would be Arneson and Miato? They're all so many what if questions, but indeed we can't think of what ifs here. We've got to think of the certainty and the facts of the matter are that right now Beta Frost definitely having to chase down the leader. And in terms of the gaps there, William Arneson 4 tenths off the overall pole time at the moment, with Hayden Miller only a further 7 thousandths off. Currently in 4th place there, back once again after missing last round, but good to see him in this Corvette 063 GTR, making his way onwards and down towards what will be the hairpin. But right now, the 281 driver here, definitely trying to get as much heat into the tyres as possible with his outlap underway, and not long left in the day in this qualifying session. And that's the elite class. What about in pro? Well, here's a familiar theme. Maxim Philippar, currently the fastest of the pros, 6th overall, the only driver this season in the pros taking overall win. Of course, taking that win at the Monza combined circuit in the slipstream orientated race. But the gassed up Motorsports driver right now in terms of qualifying here, 4 tenths quicker than the next driver in pro, and that's all the way down in 10th for Sean Connor, as the Connor Bros racing McLaren driver. Right now looking to make sure he stays ahead of the rest of his contemporaries, Kyle Roy being the next, a further 10th behind, with Robin Paranier segueing his way between the two. But as we do see there, Sean Connor coming underneath the gantry camera, and we do look to Kyle Roy meanwhile, who makes his way towards the back end lap, heading towards Misano curve, and the 171 driver here in his Corvette. Well, he's definitely proven to be Mr. Consistent over the course of the season. He's had a bit of a wobble in the previous round, and we're hoping that wobble is not the sign of further symptoms, and instead it is purely just a one-off moment, as he indeed has proven to be the one who, on paper at least, if you take the mathematics, you put all the statistics together, statistically, he is the driver right now who should be leading the championship, and he is currently leading it. But of course, 2 rounds to go, and they're going to be absolutely heartless with regards to get it wrong in a single round, and suddenly everything could be tied up between Roy and Connor, and that's before you consider Nathan Anstis, currently 6th for the pro drivers here, 18th overall, and he does have Ross Young and Matthew Croft between him and none other than Kyle Roy. And in terms of the time delta, with Nathan Anstis right now, to get to Ross Young, he needs to find half a 10th, and it's going to be a further 300ths to Croft and then a further 400ths to Cole Roy. So it is very close in this qualifying session. But speaking of closeness, well, Robin Paranier right now in the pit lane. There you can see him parked up for Sim Coach in his Mercedes AMG Evo from 2020, indeed getting the year right. I was going to say 2022, but now I'm thinking of a different car there, thinking of the introduction of the BMW M4 GT3. But Robin Paranier parked up and itching to go at some point if he needs to, but he's currently ahead of Craig Hewlett in this qualifying session. Craig Hewlett parked up there. His McLaren 720S Evo, and was second of the Inter drivers, the best part of what's 300ths behind, or 32 thousandths. Very close between them. But where's our 3rd place driver? It's Martin Kenyon, who's currently out the car, and indeed in the pit lane. So Martin Kenyon looking quite quick here. Never ruled him out in the Lamborghini Huracan Evo, I can tell you that. And then we do have Grant Miller and Andrew Montine. They are both right now chasing down the final spots of the top 5 in the pro class. And your championship leader here, not looking too good. However, do keep in mind he is the best part of 4 attempts off of Paranier, and we have seen 4 attempts in qualifying mean something entirely different in the race sometimes, where actually it doesn't really add up. And what we mean by that is the fact that, remember, qualifying is just a single lap, and over a single lap in an open qualifying session, there are so many factors out there. Firstly, you as a driver. Are you a driver who's very capable of delivering one lap magic? There's some drivers out here who absolutely struggle with qualifying and will say, my biggest weakness is qualifying because I can't do a single lap under pressure, and they prefer to be able to do it over the race. They are more race drivers, or what is endurance drivers, or pace drivers. You'll have many different names for that type of driver, where for them it's all about get me in the car and leave me in the car for what is the best part of an hour, several hours, and I can keep putting the laps together. You tell me a time I need to hit and I will do that. Being qualifying, if you say to them, go do the best possible lap you can, they'll look at you, scratch their heads and go, excuse me, sorry, can you say that again? Conversely, there are some drivers out there, if you say, right, go do the fastest lap you can, just throw them in the car, they're absolutely magical. The opposite end of the spectrum is when you say to them over the race, right, I need you to turn the pace down and protect the tyres for 30 minutes, they might be going, actually, I don't think I can do that. And that's why you have such an array of drivers here on the grid, and we've seen all different characteristics from drivers over the course of the season. But for the recap there of what is our positions for our top 5s, or at least our top 3s in each of the classes in qualifying so far, well, one thing we definitely owe you is an on-board lap with one of our drivers, ladies and gentlemen. And the good news is we're coming up to one, and today let's jump on board with Nathan Anstis as he takes us around for a fly at Misano. Just coming in towards turn number 1 then, braking about 100 meters from corner apex and chucking the car in. Now onto the brakes, coming down to second gear. You're allowed to mount these curves a huge amount, and now open up the car. In fact, no, he took too much curve at 2 and immediately decides to scrap the lap. So Nathan Anstis there, aggressive, but too aggressive, in fact, as he toes the pit lane. But thankfully, we can pick up the story here with Cole Roy going on to another lap. So he carries on, he gets turn 2 right and making his way in towards turn number 3. Well, the idea is you want to mount those curves as much as possible, but you must always keep 2 wheels in the white lines or on the white lines. That's the real limiter. But coming through turn number 4 now, low speed corner, first gear up to second there as he transitions into 5, brings the car over to the right hand side and open up turn number 6. And as he ejects his way out now, flat out all the way. Now coming down towards the hairpin at turn number 8 via the King Concern, as we do see a car stepping aside there. And now getting ready to go onto the brakes here, looking for his brake mark. It will be at the white line end. It denotes 150 meters. Down to second gear he goes. Goes for a V-shape approach, but understeers wide. And for Cole Roy, well, he'll carry on, but that will be an invalidation lap there. And this Corvette very prone to understeer mid-corner. And coming down in towards the turn 10 hairpin right now, down to second gear. Tries to cut the corner in a very wide U-shape approach there. Gets it right. Turn number 10, a very tricky hairpin to get right at the best of times, even in these dry conditions, because of the way the corner tapers so aggressively at the apex. We're going down for 11 in towards 12, keeping the car nice and wide there, in towards turn number 12 and 13 now, and onto the brakes he goes, dropping down to 4th gear on transition, and now in towards turn 14. Hard on the brakes there, 100 meters from corner apex, down to first gear. In fact, backs the car off entirely. Wants to give himself some breathing room now to the next car up the road. And I do believe that's Sean Connor there, so he decides to back off. And indeed, 2 of our onboard laps there having to come to a bit of a premature end, as Kyle Roy now goes into Misano Bend at turn 16 to go on to what will be his penultimate flying lap. Do keep in mind, of course, when the clock strikes 0, we will have overtime in effect, so it's not immediately over. Our drivers do get one last chance if they are on the lap. But right now, Andrea Miato goes onto a flyer, and as he does so, well, let's get the onboard with him. Making his way for turns 1 and 2 here. Well, right now the Tartan ResTech driver, you can see how much he wants to attack those curbs. Car coming out the pit lane, steps aside. Interesting pit lane exit here at Misano. It is completely away from the circuit, and it rejoins the exit at turn 3. As he breaks his way into turn number 4 there, down to first gear, really shuffling through the gears there in order to make sure that he's able to slow the car perfectly. He takes a very tight line through turn number 6. I think he's just about get to him track limits there, but I emphasize just about. I think that was literally millimeters away from being invalidated, and going down towards turn number 8 now, braking his way on in, very aggressive on corner entry. They're using the front left tyre and mounting the curve to push the car through the corner, practically turning the car on the grass there at the apex, and now coming up in towards turn number 10. Well, Miato making his way into this braking zone here, but it does seem as though he's perhaps backed off a little bit. In fact, going deep there, he's decided now, I think, just to let the car settle on down. So everyone having a bit of difficulty in the last moments of qualifying, as he does let his teammate there of none other than Pietro Antonio Pasquarello close up to him and therefore gift him a bit of a slipstream. Indeed, it hasn't been the perfect day there for onboard laps. He steps aside there, and Pietro Antonio makes his way on past, and right now hoping he can move up, because in terms of surprise in this qualifying session, in which we do have 37 drivers in attendance today. Alex Brown, James Connolly and David Young have not set representative laps so far, but meanwhile the lowest place driver is Ryan Littlemore in 34th on a 37.079. Well, the biggest surprise is Pietro Antonio Pasquarello here. We do see out on circuit, coming all the way down in 22nd place, and well, that's 11th in the elite class here. We normally expect him to be inside the top 5 in qualifying, or very close to it. He does improve there to a 34.233, he goes into one final lap, but it's definitely not a happy story, it would seem. Meanwhile, Reece Saunders in the BMW that he didn't want will now make his way through turns 1 and 2 here. He's currently 8th overall, and what is 7th in the elite class. So the Altitude Trim Esports driver once again finding himself towards the back end of the top 10 of elite, but still trying to make sure he gets the most out of the BMW, even if it's the case of mistaken selection of car. Right now he's definitely going to make sure it's the best mistake he can possibly make. Rolling his way out of there, well, with 12 seconds left. Who's coming towards the end of a current lap? We do have Sean Connor. He heads the line with only 3 seconds on the timing line, so therefore he's going to back off there. In fact, he does not improve, and he decides he can't improve any further. And we have Miato here in the distant toe there of Pasquarello, although going wide out of turn number 8 there, that might be an invalidated lap. So checker flag is out. Now, who exactly is going to improve right at the depth of the session? Darren Sharples cross the line. Does he find some time? No, he does not, as the Beta Ross team come through in formation. Alexander Wingmark there being gifted as much tow as possible, as we do have the car of, I believe that's Henrik Rees Strand, deciding to go play sandcastles. Meanwhile, Maxim Philippar And currently the fastest of the pros out there, currently 6th overall. Does he want to get into the top 5? I get the feeling, yes, he does. Is he improving so far on this lap? No, he's not. He has delivered his first 2 sectors. Things have not been improving, so it's going to be the last sector. It's going to be do or die with regards to this lap. Although, to be fair, if you're taking pole and pro and you've got 3 elites between yourself and the next pro driver, I think you'll be very happy at that. But understand, he's one of those drivers out there who, if he can go even quicker, he will. As he cuts all the apex at turn number 14, will just about get away with that. As meanwhile, Pasquarello has improved off camera. And Max Philippa goes wide out the final quarter, dropping off, and therefore that'll be his qualifying session done. But Pasquarello moves to 10th there. A lovely lap to complete his session. And, well, is that it all said and done? The answer is yes, it is, ladies and gentlemen, because nobody else out on circuit. Everyone's completed their qualifying laps, and Andrea Miato and takes pole position once again with 33.071, 2.5 tenths quicker than Henrik Strand, who returns to the front row. And William Arneson, his teammate for Beta Ross, will line up 3rd ahead of Hayden Miller, who, after missing last round on the grid, starting 4th there. Watch out for him. In pro, it's going to be Maxim Philippa in 6th for pole position. Well done to him. Head of Sean Connor will start 11th for the late promotion of Pasquarello to 10th. And then we will see Kyle Roy 3rd fastest in pro, 13th overall. Between Connor and Roy, it's going to be your interpole sitter of Robin Powell. And Powell there doing an absolutely brilliant job to put himself 12th just to Craig Hewlett. But of course, he can never shake off the Axis SimSport drivers, and Craig Hewlett making sure that adage stays with him. And meanwhile, you have to look all the way down to none other than 22nd place for your 3rd place into starter Martin Kenyon, who then was able to outpace Grant Miller by 1.5 tenths and a further 0.5 tenth to Andrew Montine, the championship leader, who knows there's got to be a lot of hard work coming his way. But that is qualifying definitely done and dusted, ladies and gentlemen. Some of the big surprises out there. Well, one of the big ones, Rob Windsor, all the way down in 29th place. 11th for the pros there. Completely out of his class, if you will, in terms of being around his contemporaries. Albeit he's definitely shown he's a pro driver this season. But as the circuit now transitions from what is our qualifying session to our race warm-up, well, definitely a few stories out there, and not all of them positive. But still, we do see our drivers now making their way into the 5-minute warm-up, and this is the perfect opportunity. And if you haven't got yourself some cool liquid refreshment or a hot cup of tea, it's entirely up to you what you drink. But definitely being British here, I will be biased to say that if you're not drinking tea, then what are you drinking? But on top of that as well, if you haven't had the opportunity to go to the bathroom, perhaps other drivers will be making the most of that now to do so, or alternatively, go get yourself a snack that you can have whilst you're watching all the racing, then go do it, because you've got 5 minutes before we head to the grid, and after that you will not want to leave. As we do see our drivers leaving the pit lane, and well, you can see there how it is so very different compared to the rest of the circuit, where we do bypass the entirety of turns 1, 2 and the most of 3. Now this circuit, the Misano World Circuit Marcus Simoncelli, of course named after the local motorcycling hero who passed away sadly in 2011, but still living on in the spirit of the circuit. And this is definitely one of those circuits that has gained so much major acclaim, particularly in the last 2 decades. Now, if you're wondering what kind of racing has taken place here, well, it's no stranger to the likes of World Superbike, for example, on 2 wheels, but it has been found to be a very popular circuit with the likes of GT World Challenge Europe, and it was the scene, of course, of the first ever win for none other than a man who's the king of two-wheel racing, many would say, although that's perhaps debatable in the modern era, but definitely has proven himself to be very capable on 4 wheels as well. I'm referring to none other, of course, Valentino Rossi, the FIA silver driver in terms of his classification ability, and taking his first overall win with his teammate here at the Misano circuit, what was last year, if my memory serves me correctly, as part of Team WRT in their BMW M4 Evo. But Steve Hobbs makes his way around. Well, it goes to show that whether it's raced on 2 wheels or 4 wheels, everyone can have a lot of excitement here at this wonderful circuit. And indeed, the European GT4 Series also visits this circuit on an annual basis, and it leads to some plenty of elbows out action. Now, if we did have wet weather conditions, much like the Thursday Series earlier on the week before, well, I can tell you one thing, the fact we would be looking at a circuit that's a very different beast, because the problem with a very flat circuit is water does not displace itself. Circuits with elevation changes normally see water run away, it contours away, but of course there is drainage at this circuit, but nevertheless, when it does rain, the water does settle, particularly on the curbs and also towards the apex of the circuit. And that's one of the things with this track, well, the fact that a lot of the corners do have a slight incline down towards the apex. It's not always obvious. You'll see it here from this camera angle potentially for Steve Hobbs as he comes in towards turn 4. You can see actually the circuit does slope downwards. It means water would gather towards the apexes, but we will see none of that today. There is no rain in the forecast as such, and I'm trying to be grateful for that, because Misano goes from being one style of circuit circuit in the dry, which is a circuit with plenty of racing width, albeit there is a pronounced race line, to a circuit in the wet, whereby it's all about figuring out where the least amount of water is. And you could say that for any circuit, but Misano, it really is. Most corners become corners whereby you're essentially exploring every lap. There's no consistency to how the circuit feels, whereas in the dry, there's definitely plenty of consistency. But what can we look out for then in the dry conditions here? Well, of course, we do have a limited number of instant points that our drivers can take before they get drive-through penalties. Instant points will be the big theme here. The track limit, well, the idea is you want to abuse track limits as much as possible. You want to cut these curbs, you want to use all the runoff areas. But should you put two wheels beyond the white lines at any point, it's automatically a 1 instant point, or a 1X as it's known. Get to the best part of 18 of those, and you will be seeing a drive-through penalty for your misdemeanors, and nobody wants a drive-through penalty with maximum full apart, particularly when you've taken pole position in pro. So that will be on the minds of our drivers. They need to absolutely abuse those limits as much as possible. But if you're wondering, if you're new to the world of iRacing, how else can you get instant points? Well, if you lose control of the car, if you're adjudged to essentially be out of control, you will pick up 2 instant points. That's typically if you go for a spin at some point on the lap. And if you end up in contact with another car, which starts off, it's a very gentle touch as a 0X, whereby it's a tap contact. And indeed, you would expect that in door-to-door racing, but should it be considered to be severe enough, it will automatically be 4 instant points for contact for both drivers. It doesn't matter who started it and who ended it there. We don't play the blame game here as if it was in a high school playground, but you'll definitely see both drivers there pick up 4 instant points. And therefore, really, you have 5 contacts, and suddenly you've got a drive-through penalty, which doesn't sound easy to do that, but when you consider how tight and compressed it's going to be into turn number 1, it's a short run to turn 1, and everyone will be too wide in the formation lap. Well, suddenly, it does seem as though contacts could come very pleasantly or unpleasantly, perhaps. But as everyone definitely gets himself keyed in now, with 30 seconds to go, we look to Shane Connor here, and the second member of the Connor family on the grid, the Connor Bros driver, and here in his Corvette once again today. And it definitely has been a bit of a muddling back end of the season. Last time out in Germany, things did not go right at all, and understanding right now, I think he'll be wanting to get his head down and see what he can do here. We do know the American driver has got a huge amount of pace, and he's really shown it in the mid-portion of the season. Had some good results, and as he goes a bit wrong there, exploring what cold tyres will do at turn number 8. Well, he'll make that mistake now, so he gets it out the way before we go racing. Well, it's a good time to do so, ladies and gentlemen, because as Daniel Page sees his lap to a conclusion, we see this warm-up session to a conclusion. 5 minutes like that is done and dusted. It's time to make our way to the grid for 60 minutes of intense racing action in round number 9 of the Sunday GT3 Championship Season 17, brought to you by UKSimRacing and hosted by SimRacing International here at the Misano World Circuit in Italy. And so, as all drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for one and only race today. And as we can see, it's pole position there for Andrea Miato. He'll be absolutely pleased as punch for that. Another pole position, and indeed he's making a habit of it, but he knows he's got a lot of pressure coming up behind him. The first and foremost applying that pressure, 2.5 tenths behind Henrik Riestrand, the Betafoss driver from Norway there. 9, he's got to find some magic in the race to beat the Italian on pace. William Arneson starts third there behind his teammate, but just ahead of Hayden Miller, returning to the grid, starting 4th today for Phoenix Racing. It was 4 attempts from pole to him, and then we do have a further attempt or so to Harvey Wheeler for Free-Wheeler Racing by Phoenix, starting in 5th place there, and indeed a brilliant performance last time out, and we'll be hoping for even more today. Maxim Philippard, the gassed up Motorsport Pro pole sitter, starts in 6th there. The Belgian driver right now, on paper at least, the fastest driver in Pro over a lap, but hopefully the car gets going today, and it looks though it will. Kasper Rotner starts in 7th place for Old Dudes in Cars Amnesia. He definitely hasn't forgotten how to put himself inside the top 10, ahead of Reece Saunders. Altitude 3M Esports, who's starting 8th there in his BMW. We do expect he's going to be very quick in the race pace. Richard Simnor begins today in 9th then for DCW, racing ahead of Pietro Antonio Pasquarello, and the Italian driver there completing that top 10 with late improvements in qualifying proving valuable for Tartan Restech's number 2 driver. We then do see starting in 11th place. That is going to be none other than Sean Connor, and the Connor Bros driver just ahead of the Interpole sitter for SimCoach. That's Robin Pownier, looking to make it a 3rd win of the season, and if he does so, he could tie things up going into the season finale, particularly when you consider where Andrew Montine is on this grid. He's not on screen right now, I can tell you that. Carl Roy begins the day in 13th there, 3rd of the pros of Miracle Group M Academy, and he'll be hoping he can move towards the win towards the end, or at least 2nd place. If not, he'll have Craig Hewlett, the Inter 2nd place driver company there for Axis Sport Y, ahead of Max Wheeler, who begins today 15th for Free-Wheeler Racing by Phoenix. Matthew Croft begins this one in 16th for Axis Sport Z, ahead of Ross Young for DXT Motorsports, and it's Justin Noel starting 18th there with a reasonable qualifying performance, and the American driver there right in the mid-pack, hoping he can go forward. Nathan Anstis Sharpless begins this one in 19th for UKSimRacing International, ahead of Hendrik Zilko, completes your top 20. And the Swiss driver there, Hamwo's better qualifying points of the season to take on Anstis, the third place man in the Pro Championship. Outside the top 20, 21st, it's Darren Sharpless for Old Dudes in Cars midlife crisis, and he's definitely going to be experiencing a mid-grid crisis here. He's making a habit of qualifying just outside the top 20 every so often, but still he'll fight forward. Then it's going to be Martin Kenyon starting 22nd for DXT Motorsport, and watch out for him. He looks very quick in qualifying when you consider that's third in Inter, just ahead of the Inter pair of Grant Miller for Phoenix Racing and Andrew Montine for Axis SimSport Z, the championship leader starting 5th in the interclass, and he's going to need some magic here today if he wants to take a podium away. Ashley Brooks begins this on the 13th row, 25th for Axis SimSport Z, behind his teammate, but ahead of Steve Hobbs for SimCoach. Then we do have Daniel Page beginning this one, 27th for Old Dudes in Cars Amnesia, ahead of Shane Connor. And right now for Shane Connor, he'll be hoping this race can be quite straightforward. Rob Windsor begins at 29th for UKSimRacing International, ahead of Nick Parks, who completes the top 30, struggling in qualifying today compared to the Nürburgring. 31st, we'll see Alexander Wingmark there for Beta Frost, hoping he can move forward from there. That was not representative of the pace he's brought to the table in the number 2, and it's going to be Tom Wheeler, 32nd there for Freewheeler Racing by Phoenix, ahead of Andrew Fellows for GPX SimSport Zen, who returns to the grid after quite a gap away, but very happy to see him here once again today. And it's going to be Ryan Littermore, the last driver to set a valid lap in qualifying, the privateer. And then we do have David Young, no lap set, starting 35th there for Logistical Nightmare Racing. And sadly, it does seem as though we have lost James Connolly for UKSimRacing Herbert, and also Alex Brown for Slow and Steady Racing, both of them having technical issues with the car. And I'm hearing Andrew Fellows the same. He is not in the formation lap, and therefore he might be starting from the pit lane if he is able to get the car started. So we are potentially down to 34 starters before we've even gone green flag racing, and as the formation lap makes its way into the final quarter of the circuit, we are not too far away from going green flag, ladies and gentlemen, because there we can see Andrea Miato gradually backing the grid up away from the safety car. But the safety car, of course, will come into pit lane shortly, and Miato will be only allowed to go when the green lights say we can go. But through the final corner, Andrea Miato takes the field, and it's to the green for 60 minutes of racing. We are waiting to take us. And it's lights out, away we go here for our 9th race of the season as Andrea Miato goes on green. And as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, where we can see the scramble further back in the field, there's the Beta Frost tries. Both look left and right to him, but can't find the way through. Anderson and Strand there, too wide. Best going to see William Anderson go wide. Here comes Hayden Miller looking for an opportunity to get involved, but can he do so? No. We've had an instant for Sean Connor further back. We'll get a replay of that when we can. Craig Hewlett's also been caught up. We're seeing the split in the field there, and that denotes where we have had an instant, but we have to get the replay of that later. Meanwhile, as our lead top 10 make the way through turns 4 and 5, well, we can see Robin Powney on the back of this group right now. He's stuck into 11th place there as Richard Simnor trying to poke his way through. Hold up, is that 3 wide going out of the corner? I think it is. Simnor on the outside, Saunders in the middle, and Pasquariello meanwhile being elbowed down there as they come down towards turn number 8. But onto the brakes they go. Harvey Wheeler up the inside of Casper Brotner. Lovely move there from the 2-3-4 driver, taking the place back for 6th place overall. Meanwhile, Max Wheeler behind. He's had a slow start to this race as the BMW driver. He's all over the back of Matthew Croft. Croft, meanwhile, has gained a lot of places by comparison, but still more fighting to come. As here we do see Richard Simnor right now grouped up behind Casper Brotner. And in fact, Petro Antonio Pasquarello, there's going to go all the way around the outside, but can't quite find it. Simnor and then gets the better exit. So in turn, Robin Powney now watching on. He's up to 10th place. There's the Inter leader, Kyle Roy. We can see a little bit further back here, side by side with Rhys Saunders at the moment, but Roy trying to creep his way on past. And the Scotsman right now definitely in the throes of batting with the elite driver. And he wants Rhys Saunders to back off. And in the end, on that inside line, it's going to be a much tighter entry. He's going to be very careful here. Saunders meanwhile can carry all the speed. They'll be too wide all the way through into turn 14. Car off the road. That is Casper Brotner rejoining. Well, he's definitely gone very wide there and decided to make a very wide turn 13, but I don't think that's by design. Meanwhile, going further back, Andrew Montine, he's up into 4th place in the interclass on the back of Shane Connor. Shane Connor, hold up a second. How on earth has he got there? I'm not saying that's a bad thing. The Connor Bros tries and leapt his way all the way from 7th into 3rd in class. He's had a monster start, and I do wonder whether there's been a bit of shuffling down the order. And I think Shane Connor's just timed it right as well. But either way, as we see Nick Parks is there on the other side of Andrew Montine. So right now, 2 superstar performances there in the interclass on the opening lap, but there's still plenty of laps to go here, as we do see Shane Connor going a bit deep there for turn number 2. Tight line through 3. That's going to cost a bit of momentum here, and particularly in a Corvette that loves to understeer on corner exit, you can understand he's going to lose a lot of momentum. But Andrew Montine looking around the outside now. Can Montine find a way to get this done? No, he outbrakes himself into turn 4. There's Nick Parks to the inside. He'll be very grateful there. The fact he switches to a left-hander into turn number 6. But right now, Andrew Montine under major pressure. But look at that from Darren Sharple. Sharple's now trying to get involved here. The pro driver trying to pick his way past several drivers here. Is it going to be easy? Perhaps not. But either way, none of these things are easy to be fair. Sharples goes up the inside of Parks, lets it go for now. Albeit I don't think he'll be too pleased about the fact he has to let it go. go, but all things considered, I think it's the right thing to do there. I don't think he's going to want to stay there at all as they make the way onwards. So therefore it does mean Sharples moves upwards, Nick Sparks falls downwards, but he's got Daniel Page, Ryan Littlemore and Grant Miller for company. Tom Wheeler here as well. Wheeler's on the attack, but goodness me, for what is Ryan Littlemore as well, we'll give him a shout out. He's moved all the way up from what's the very back of the interfield, all the way up into 7th in the class right now, and the privateer in the Marlboro livery McLaren, indeed honouring the earlier honorary days of the Formula 1 team, McLaren Honda. And right now there's no Honda engine in the back of that, unless he's turned up with spoon engines there, but I can't remember the Fast and Furious quote right now. I'm not going to try and do it, but coming down into that braking zone, number 26 driver here right now on the move. But as all the field comes on through to complete another lap, we see Craig Hewlett all the way down to the back with Alexander Wingmark just in front and David Young behind. So Hewlett's had a nightmare start to this race, but we really need some intelligence as to what exactly has happened. Meanwhile, change of position, that is going to be Matthew Croft powering his way past Reece Saunders as Robin Pownier getting passed around the outside to inside through turns 1 and 2 by Max Wheeler. So the interleader giving up positions there to elite drivers. I don't think that's a bad idea, to be fair. Although the problem he's now got is that Casper Rotten and Justin Noel getting quite close. Here's Justin Noel looking up the inside. Onto the brakes he goes, the privateer. And well, rolling his way on through there, trying to poke his nose in versus Casper Rottner, who of course did start right towards the front of the field. Rottner having it off at turn 13, so he's got to make a bit of a recovery drive. Justin Noel, meanwhile, just enjoying himself coming up the field gradually. And indeed, he does have this absolute love for pushing his way forward. And well, he's been on quite a bit of a journey in recent race at SimRacing International, sometimes not qualifying and making his way upwards there, definitely working on his racing mindset as I'm to understand it, but indeed he's been working hard on it and giving credit where it's due right now. He finds himself right in the thick of all the action and he's being a very fair and honest racer amongst all these guys. But as Nathan Anstis tries to find his way around the outside, Anstis will want no out of the way because he wants to try and go hunt down a podium in the pro class today, particularly versus Carl Roy and also Matthew Croft. And Anstis will clear just now in the end on the exit of the hairpin, but there's still a long way to go here, and right now he knows his journey is one that is not going to be paid with easy tasks. But from here we come back to the front of the field. Here is Andrea Miato, race leader right now by 1.3 seconds over William Arneson as he comes towards Misano Bend, and Arneson has Hayden Miller close behind, and Henrik Strand has actually found his way down to fourth place. Arneson's got back meanwhile, and after what's their early excursion, understandably, I think these drivers right now have all been swapping back and forth, and we need to get some replays of what exactly happened at the very start. Well, we will do so very shortly, as we do see Max Wheeler here side by side with Matthew Croft. Now Matthew Croft is going to outrun him down towards turn 1. Wheeler goes to the inside, then back to the outside here, I think looking one way then the other, trying to say to Matthew Croft, why won't you let me go? Or at least that's going to be one interpretation of the racer's Morse code. There's very numerous interpretations of it. Indeed, we don't have our translation book out right now, because what means let me go for some means I'm attacking you for others. But coming down into the braking zone for turn number 4, he stays put at least for the time being. And further back there we do see Steve Hobbs. He's chasing after Hendrik Zilka and the Sim Coach Mustang. Well, he's had a good start to this race, moving from the back end to the top 10 in Pro 2, 6th in the class, and he's almost now looking for 5th place over Hendrik Zilka. Will he be able to find it? Well, it's definitely a task that we'll see him trying to make happen. That change for here, that is Pasquarello having to go defensive versus Harvey Wheeler. Wheeler trying to go around the outside him there as Carl Roy just watches on. But right now, no move forward there for Wheeler, but I think it's going to be a question of when, not if he can go for a move again, as both of the Aston Martins there drag their way through turn number 10, and Kyle Roy, meanwhile, gets a much better exit with the switchback there coming on through, and that Corvette right now is going to be equal in straight line speed here as he does pass Harvey Wheeler, so upper place there overall, but right now, knowing that 8th place is worth no more than what would be 9th place, unless he can find his way past Maxim Philippar, who's up in 5th currently. We can definitely understand if Harvey Wheeler's getting a little bit eager here to make some progress as Roy dives up the inside there of Pasquarello. He's definitely playing with fire right now as Carl Roy, but I suspect he's feeling as though he's got more pace than these elite drivers, and he's trying to show it to them, so that way he's able to force them backwards and give himself an even bigger comfort gap. Now, we have had Hayden Miller drop down the order. I think he's had a slowdown coming out of the final corner. He's had to serve on the start, finish straight, so he's dropped to 5th. Maxim Philippar now up into 4th. And that means Henrik Reece Strand as well, moving up into 3rd place. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we take a trip back in time and see what exactly has happened in the early stage of the race, starting with the race start. Now, of course, it's always a good place to start with the race start, but the big question we do have is what exactly happened to Sean Connor in proceedings. So, we look a bit further down the order. Here's Connor as the field went green. What exactly happened to him? So a good start there on the inside. Kyle Roy right behind. So a bit of pressure early on here. Roy went to come up the inside, and as he made his way into turn 1, Roy in the end cutting the corner, so he had to give that time back. 3 wide there. A bit of contact, I believe, with the number 4, and that's what sent him on around there. And, well, understandably, Sean Connor's not going to be too pleased in the proceedings of things, because that definitely was a tap that turned him sideways. It definitely was one of the Axis Influence cars. Now I think about, was it a number 4 or not? Not quite sure on the door. That's why Sean Connor fell on down, but he managed to get himself back together. We had this for Craig Hewlett. And Hewlett at the time, well, he was caught in it, and, well, that explains where Hewlett was in all the proceedings in your number 4 car with that side-to-side contact and lost the rear. Oh, goodness me, lost the rear of the car, went sideways into another and rolled backwards. The field fanned around it, to be fair, so Hewlett, as he came out of turn 2, the car just not steady, and as a result, we saw Darren Sharples take to the off-road there to escape what could have been further contact. But I think there was a small tap to the car of none other than what would have been, I think that might have been Ashley Brooks there who took some damage, but still looks like Craig Hewlett definitely come off the worst of the two there. So Sean Connor, in retrospect, we think to himself, actually that wasn't so bad, but unfortunately the man he was in contact with had it come off the worst by comparison. We had this then for Casper Brotner towards the end of lap number 13, and then as he made his way on through 12 and 13 onto the brakes, and the car just slid completely loose there, bouncing off of the road in the end to the gravel trap for Casper Brotner. Just too much momentum on cold tyres, and we're all added up there to quite a spectacular slide, but able to get it back together in the end. So those are the big moments in the opening couple of laps of the race, ladies and gentlemen, and it's back to your live racing we go. And we'll still plenty of racing action to unfold, no doubt about it, as these drivers carry on their journey. But who exactly now is going to be settling down a little bit more comfortably than others? Well, further down the order, we've got Nick Parks here battling with Daniel Pays. These two fighting over 5th place in Inter. So we thought this was going to happen gradually. Parks definitely had a good start, so did Daniel Pays. But into that braking zone they go, and we'll roll their way on through. It does seem as though there Nick Parks making that move happen. We sadly didn't get you the replay of Shane Connor's absolute monster start, moving up into 3rd in the interclass. So that's been lost to time now. We can definitely tell you that Shane Connor did make a lot of progress, but he has lost out to Andrew Montine in the replay gap that we've had. But meanwhile, as we do see Daniel Pays coming back here, using the cornering abilities of the Porsche to its advantage, well, now the Ford Mustang here will open up the tanks, and Parks should just be able to outrun his rival in the run down towards turn number 13. Although saying that, Pays are not giving up here as they come through 12 in towards the right-hander of 13 now. Pays on the inside. Parks does go wide, and Daniel Pays takes the place back there. Brilliant racing between them. Tom Wheeler. Oh, that's a big side loose from none other than Ashley Brooks in front, and Brooks was the car that we saw in that contact with Craig Hewlett at the start of the race. I'm not saying the contact there has definitely upset that Mercedes even more than it would normally be upset, but right now the Access Sport Z driver will be upset with that big slide. And well, Tom Wheeler does make his way into 26th overall, although it's not a change in class position as Ashley Brooks comes into the pit lane, and I suspect there might be an issue with the car that they need to take a look at. Meanwhile, Casper Brotner side by side with Matthew Croft. So Croft right now and trying to find his way around the outside there, Casper Brotner. Brotner, meanwhile, still on his recovery drive. And whilst all this is happening, we've got a bit of drama for Grant Miller, as I understand it. We'll get a replay of that when we can. Albeit Miller has been into the pit lane quite recently. Several drivers have come into the pits. Craig Hewlett, Ashley Brooks as well. And I do wonder whether they're potentially getting pit stops out of the way and getting some repair work to their cars done simultaneously. Now, if they are coming for their strategic stop this early, given the fact we are expecting one-stop races, well, it does mean the pit window here today is going to be very wide. And that could lead to a lot of strategic variety. Well, as the theme has always been this season, if you are in the lead pack, or at least inside the top 15, you normally don't want to pit until the very end of the fuel tank, just for the simple reason you are going to end up stepping on the toes of other drivers who have already found their way ahead of you, but have yet to pit. But as we do look to Pietro Antonio Pasquarello here, he does have Wheeler and Brotner behind, that being Max Wheeler in the BMW. Well, Pasquarello right now trying to hold it together, holding on to 10th place. Indeed, qualifying seemed to be a bit of a struggle until the very end. So the 2-2-3 driver right now seemingly really having to battle uphill today. And Wheeler and Brotner behind watching on, but Casper Brotner's the man you need to think about as we ride on board with the old dudes in cars Amnesia driver, because for him, he's definitely proven to be a very quick driver, and well, understanding this position right now is not reflective of where he qualified. But Max Wheeler steps aside there. Is that for a slowdown penalty or not? I'm not sure, but Matthew Croft does come through as well. I suspect with the gravitas at which he did slow down there, Max Wheeler, that it might be for track limits. He's had to give some time back, and indeed that's going to be a recurring theme here today. But whilst that's a theme, there's also a theme here, the fact that our Interleader now has Nathan Anstis right behind it. So Robin Pownier does have a little bit of a question mark hanging over him. And, well, an even bigger question mark is this man behind, Martin Kenyon. Well, the man who started all the way down in 22nd place overall, but further he enters, he's now very close here to going on the attack versus Robin Pownier. As Kenyon's going to outrun what we Nathan Anstis down towards turn number 8. Pownier going to the inside there to defend, I think. worried about the fact that Martin Kenyon really coming along very quickly here right now, and he's not quite going to the level of a missile, but understand if he can lock onto his target, he might be trying to land a blow here as they come through in towards turns 9 and 10. Anstis still going around the outside, and I think Anstis right now trying to use his Porsche's cornering capabilities to match Lamborghini, but in the end falling backwards, and Kenyon now up into 16th place, one more place gained, and he'll be leading in the interclass in. How long has it been since we've seen Martin Kenyon potentially contesting a class win? And the answer is, I don't think we've seen that this season. He's come close to podiums, no doubt about it, but yet to take a class win, Kenyon could do it today. But meanwhile, Max Wheeler battling with Reece Saunders here, the battle of the BMWs, with Justin Noel trying to find his way in. Two-way they come through turn number 15 now, and that's going to be Saunders defending the inside, Wheeler on the aggression. But these two definitely been enjoying the fight, and Noel's looking at this and thinking, how does he lick his lips together and perhaps salivate on the prospect of picking up 2 places at the price of 1 overtake? Well, he's not going to be able to make that happen just right now, but understandably that's what he's looking for. Looking further back to Andrew Montaigne and the Exit Sport Z driver. Well, he's currently third in the interclass there, with Shane Connor behind him. And of course, the biggest casualty of the interclass has been Craig Hewlett with what went wrong on the opening lap. And therefore, he's fallen out of that running order for now. The man who started second in the class, but he's out there on circuit and looking to try and see if he can complete the task of recovering his race together. But whilst it's been going well for a few drivers, it's been going wrong for a few others. Well, before we do come to those, we come back to Max Wheeler, who now has the problem of Justin Noel getting closer and closer. Here we look back from the rear of the 233 BMW, and the Pro Guard sponsored machine dives at the inside. That's moving Justin Noel in towards turn number 8. Does he get it done? The answer is yes for now, but Max Wheeler's BMW does pick up a little bit quicker on exit. The battle of 2 turbo supplemented machines, although we do know this BMW a bit quicker in the acceleration states in general compared to the Aston Martin, which does have to hold the revs a lot higher there to avoid turbo spalling. But we're on the way out, or turbo lag we should say. We're running the way out down towards the back stretch now. We're just now falling backwards as Robin Powney and Martin Kenyon definitely getting closer together. And, well, Martin Kenyon, of course, had that very impressive stint at the Nürburgring. If only he wasn't a lap down, what could he have done there? Indeed, it all ended up sideways going through the Schumacher S's when he had so much speed compared to everyone else. But right now, well, this is the most competitive we've seen him in the dry this season. And the VXT Motorsports driver hoping that this could be the day when he does land himself on the top step of the podium. And Robin Powney at this point, well, what do you do now? That's the problem, because on the one hand, Kenyon is not a championship rival as such. On the other hand, when Andrew Montaigne, the championship leader, and your main rival who you're chasing down is only a place further behind, you do in a way have to fight this as much as possible, because you can't afford to lose the points that you gain otherwise. Unless you can find a way to strategically let Kenyon go and then save fuel, or back him alternatively into Nathan Anstis. Anstis, of course, has got his own aspirations here, and he's going to show that as he makes way around the outside at 3, but beating Kenyon on the outside into 4. He goes a bit deep there, but he gets it done. Kenyon being quite passive there. I think Martin Kenyon is thinking to himself right now, you know what, let it go. I can always stay with Powney, and I'll let Nathan Anstis just simply become a bit of a nuisance to the man in front of me instead. But Nathan Anstis needs to go, because he's got Matthew Croft and Carl Roy up the road from him, and he needs to find a way to overtake Carl Roy if he can help it. And indeed, with Sean Connor down in 9th place after things went wrong for him at the start of the race, well, it's going to be just as critical for him as it is going to be for what will be his rivals to try and progress up that order. So that's what Nathan Anstis needs to do right now. He needs to get his head down and get these laps together, because he does seem to have a bit more race pace compared to his qualifying pace. Things right now definitely not seem to tick that way. But indeed, we're going to take a tick-tock back in time and take a look at some big moments from earlier on since we last took a look back, including what happened to Craig Hewlett as he was leaving the pit lane. Now, this was Hewlett making his way on out of pit lane exit. I've just gone through the repair work to the car, and I do believe this might be a glitch with our timing system. Indeed, making his way through the pit lane there. No actual incident as such for Craig Hewlett, but that was him making his way back out, and with Grant Miller doing the same. But meanwhile, I think it was all issues for drivers, as we had this Reece Saunders on lap number 8. So battling at the time with Kyle Roy, went a bit deep at turn 4. Ooh, well, I think there was a bit of contact there with Petrantonio Pasquarello. That sent him wide, and that explains how he fell back into the clutches of Max Wheeler. So we were wondering perhaps how Reece Saunders fell back, and we wondered there's a bit of discontinuity in his positions, and that's how the battle between him and Max Wheeler started then, after the smallest of taps to the rear quarter coming through turn number 5 after he'd already run deep. But thankfully there, nothing more than that. We then had this for Ryan Littlemore on lap number 8. And this was the Marlboro machine, the privateer coming through, turn number 3, rear of the car sliding loose, slide loose a little bit more, went to the runoff area, there's no grip out there, and into the grass he finally ended his run, but a bit of an unfortunate one for him, but thankfully able to get the car back on the road and get going once again, as we get going back to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen. And so as we do come on back, still more time in the tank, no doubt about it. Another 43 minutes plus of the final lap to go. And at the very front of the field, meanwhile, things have calmed down to a degree because Andrea Miato right now in control, ahead of William Arneson and Henrik Strand, albeit the two Beta Frost drivers right now definitely trying to find a way to chisel into that gap. And there's now starting to come up behind what will be lap down cars, or the cars they're going to put lap down at least. That'll be Grant Miller just in front after what's his excursion. To come into the pit lane for reasons that we haven't quite seen, but Andrea Miato definitely right now seeing him and hoping he can pick his way through quite quickly and comfortably. But indeed, our top three exchange in lap times, if it's going out of style, and Hayden Miller, well, after him falling down the order, the Phoenix Racing driver now trying to make his way back up. We believe he lost third to fall to fourth due to a slowdown penalty. Maxime Philippard, the pro leader, running fifth at the moment, looking very comfortable there as we show you the class standings on the left-hand side of your screen so you can see who exactly is battling with whom for the major points. But speaking of points right now, points mean prizes, and right now this could be a bit brave from Steve Hobbs, coming through, turn 2 into 3, and the Sim Coach Ford Mustang there trying to use all its lateral grip, albeit he is battling with a Porsche here, and in the end he's going to go around the outside of Hendrik Zilka. Can he get it done to break it at 4? No, he can't. Zilka comes back at him now, and the door's wide open here. Does Ross Young put his nose in it? No, he does not there. He sniffs it and says, no, that doesn't smell good, and coming out to turn at number 5 and 6 right now. Well, Zilka on that defensive line, losing some momentum as well. These drivers all so close together as they make the way underneath your gantry board, and Andrew Martin battling up the inside of Ross Young there. What is the third place driver in the interclass, trying to find his way forward to chase down Martin King, who's 5 seconds away. But indeed, this is where things are going to get a little bit terrifying for all these drivers because, of course, they're intermingling. We've got a lot of inter-drivers fighting for positions, and Shane Connor still on the back of Montaigne. He's looking up the inside of the Connor Bros driver. He wants this right now. He wants to be on that podium, Shane Connor. And can we fault him for it? The answer is no. He's feeling confident, and it would be his first podium of the season if he was able to do it. He's yet to achieve a podium, and he knows right now he's battling with the championship leader, and he's on the pace of that McLaren. But can he make the magic happen? A part of me would love to see it, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm not allowed to play favourites. But it's always great to see a driver achieve their first podium, no matter when in the season. But understanding Andrea Martin right now wants to hold on here, and can you blame him from that when he knows his championship lead right now is definitely in a position where it might be going to negligible if Robin Powney is able to bring home this win, and all he can do is finish third on that podium by comparison. So therefore he'll do everything to make sure Shane Connor can't find a way through. But at this point, does Shane Connor now start thinking about the strategy instead, and how potentially he might be able to save some fuel and give himself the ability to leap ahead in the pit stops? Well, it's always a fault, but those faults, they are going to be challenging to make. A circuit which doesn't have too many long straights. Indeed, it's all about that momentum, and losing your rhythm by fuel saving can be very easy to have happen here. Richard Simnor, meanwhile, battling with Harvey Wheeler. And Wheeler trying to close back up to him over the last couple of laps. He is there right now, and the DCW Racing driver feeling a bit distant pressure. And indeed, this is going to feel similar in a way to the pressure he did have from Joe Nathan last season when it was the battle for the crown, whereby in the end Joe Nathan himself at certain rounds were never more than, say, 5 tenths away from each other for the whole 60 minutes of racing, let alone 16 or 6 minutes. Indeed, it was absolutely incredible. But right now Simnor ahead, and bolting away a little bit versus the Aston Martin on the straights, which is where the Ford Mustang has its strengths compared to the British machine. But back to your leader we go, and the gap between Miato and Arneson now has closed down a bit over the last couple of laps. It's actually down to 3.5 tenths as they roll the way off the Misano bend. And coming across the timeline this time around, well, it does seem as though, for all the pace that Miato's brought early, Sonny Arneson is responding. However, one has to keep in mind that for William Arneson, it's one thing to catch, it's another thing to pass, as the late great Murray Walker once said. And Andrea Miato has not been an easy driver to pass this season. He has definitely dug in for those positions as we briefly lose him to the ether. But hoping that's not a sign of anything to come later on in the race, of course. When we start to see cars disappear and reappear, that's normally connectivity issues, and it would be the equivalent of raising the question mark as to whether the car's going to have a technical failure later on in the day. Hayden Miller behind. He has changed places with Henrik Strand, so they've swapped on her around. We didn't quite see that on camera. We will get a replay of that when we can. That's been a change, and well, Strand's still with him there. So I think, in fact, might be a small mistake for Strand. Perhaps a slowdown, and Miller has found his way onwards. Things are starting to branch out a little bit. It's 2 by 2 here for the packs, and we do see Maxime Philippard with his headlights on full flash there. And well, Grant Miller knowing that the leader of the pro class is coming, but the gassed up motorsport driver right now, well, he's got to remember he's the one who needs to make the overtake here. This is not Formula 1 blue flag rules. It's quite the opposite, whereby the car that's going to lap down, they need to drive predictably. As Grant Miller does so there, he just pulls the inside. He'll lift off the throttle slightly by about 10%, and he will gradually let Philippard on go. The alternative is Philippard has to make an overtake, but Miller is not allowed to fight when that overtake occurs. It is the responsibility of the lead lap driver, or quote-unquote the faster driver, to make the overtake safely to put a lap on the lap down car. Looking back to those leaders, Well, Miato was caught up to in the run down towards turn 14, but it's through the corners he's able to keep just ahead of that Mercedes, and that seems to be the back and forth here right now. The Aston Martin quick in the corners, the Mercedes quick on the straight and in the traction zones, and it all adds up to lead to a bit of a spectacle. But speaking of spectacle, we need to take a quick look back at exactly how we did see a change for third place between Hayden Miller and Henry Strand. So this was coming down the start-finish straight here, and as they made their way towards turn number 1, it was Miller on the back of the Ford Mustang driver. Looking up the inside, they went too wide there, and well, Hayden Miller, I think, surprising Strand a little bit. You could see Strand wanted to turn in and suddenly remembered, I can't if there's a Corvette there, so it was not a slowdown. That was a move on the road. A lovely move there from Hayden Miller, all about momentum and getting the move done very nicely. Well, back to live racing we go. And with that change there, a critical one perhaps later in the race, when we do come back to your perspective of the drivers, in particular to Ross Young now. So that's Ryan Littlmore stepping aside, going a lap down there, but obeying the blue flags as best he can. Well, as Young and Hobbs are together here, they have lost Ilka and Kenyon recently. You can see Andrew Montine with Darren Sharp as the close company. Shane Connor has fallen back a little bit. Now, I do wonder if perhaps there's been a little bit of traffic that should aid that split in the field. Not that we're saying that anyone's done anything wrong, because when traffic doesn't fall favourably, it can always hurt. But meanwhile, Ross Young trying to deliver the hurt here as he goes up the inside of Steve Hobbs into the hairpin. But Steve Hobbs comes back down a wider line, no matter how quick that Porsche is in the corners. When the Ford Mustang's got a bit more room to work with, it's always going to get that 5-litre V8 down quite comfortably versus the flat 6.4-litre Porsche machinery. That Porsche 992 right now definitely looking happy in the hands of Ross Young, and he's trying to turn the frown upside down from last time out into a better smile today, much like his profile picture there at the bottom of your screen. But meanwhile, hold up a second, we've had, I think, Sean Connor leave the pit lane. So has Connor come in? Well, he's come in now for what will be his one and only stop after things went wrong at the start. So Sean Connor's been in, so we are starting to see some more pit stops play out here, but still the big question mark of when we'll see the majority of the pit stops come into view. As Nathan, oh, that's a hit to the barrier there for Nathan Astis coming into the pit lane. Well, it was a surprise to see him coming in, but he's decided to come in on the undercut. He will have a fast repair available. He's going to be grateful he can use that straight away. That's not the way you enter the pit lane there, Nathan, and well, he'll know that much as anyone else, but definitely he'll be grateful for the fact he can get that repair work done whilst the car's being refueled and perhaps the tyres being changed. As always, that would be a car that definitely be sitting in the pits for a lot longer. Alternatively, he would essentially be a car that's going to be damaged for the rest of the race, and particularly not like that, where it would misalign the steering at the front, and that's not helpful, and that will increase tyre wear just as much as making tyre life and tyre time a challenge, because you'd be losing that time every step of the way. But Steve Hobbs, Ross Young and Darren Sharples all together here, and Sharples looking for a potential move coming out of the corner, making the way down towards turn number 8 once again, and we can see that Andrew Montine watching on. And for Montine at this point, well, it does seem as though here he has not got the pace to really match these pro drivers. The only other thing he could potentially be doing right now is thinking to himself, well, actually, if I save off the back of them, I might gain some time in the pit lane. But with Shane Connor only 2.5 seconds behind, I would say he needs to look at pitting. Meanwhile, change of position behind 6th there into the hands of David Young in the Interclass up to 24th. Cut up the inside of Tom Wheeler. Lovely move that one for the Logistical Nightmare Racing driver who didn't set a qualifying lap, and in the end starting from the very back of the field. But to be fair, he's making his way up through the field, and one more place and he will be into 5th. He'll be back into the top 5 and into another one of his best performances of the season. Nick Parks off camera has been into the pit lane as well. Some more pit stops definitely coming through, but that's for drives further down the order. As Andrea Miato makes way past Ryan Littlmore there. Well, Littlmore goes round. Goes round. They're coming out of turn number 5 in towards 6, and Littlmore immediately toes the pit lane there, trying to get the power down. I don't think there was any contact with Arneson, but I think just overturned the rear of the car, and unfortunately for Ryan Littlmore, and thankfully for the elite leaders here, they're not caught up in that, because that would have been major drama, although I hope Littlemore's okay with that. Meanwhile, we do see Arneson, Miller and Strand all together there, but Miato definitely trying to open up the gap. Maxim Philippar, meanwhile, a bit further back, with Simnon not in the camera shot, 10 seconds behind, still bringing Harvey Wheeler along for the ride. There, these two are fighting over 5th place in the elite class, and then you have to go a little bit further back before we do see Pietro Antonio Pasquarello, and the Tartan Red Tech driver does have Casper Brockner still with him, and Reece Saunders. Now, Saunders has dropped Max Wheeler. You can see Wheeler there in the rear of the pitch. They had that good little ding-dong fight earlier on, which we caught the most of, and right now Pasquarello and Brockner thinking to each other, well, okay, what do we do now? For Brockner in particular, this is not part of plan A, not was it part of plan B, but he's really having to go to plan C, D, all the way through to Z at this point, because he's caught behind Aston Martin, has got faster over the race distance, and Pasquarello, I think, has really got into a position whereby as time has gone on, he's learning the track a lot more, and qualifying definitely was not representative of what we're seeing here from him now today. More pit stops have played out. We have had Matthew Croft come into pit lane, and we have also had Rossi Young come in, so they're all getting those pit stops out the way. But who's the driver? Who's the most highest placed with regards to having a pit stop so far? And we show you the pit stops on the timing tower there, and what you can see, it is this man, Matthew Croft. He is currently the highest placed of those who have pitted in 26th, and given the fact he did come in from what was none other than inside the back end of the top 20, it goes to show you how much time you do lose in the pit lane. It puts you a long way back. It is one of the longer pit lanes here at Misano because of the fact you are on the limiter for a very long time once you've actually left your pit stall all the way to the exit of turn 3. We can come off the limiter, so that's the pain in the sequence. And Croft right now, a clear track in front of me, has nobody around him for the best part of 6 seconds. As Andrew Montine and Shane Connor both come in. Well, we're going to come to these guys now as they make their way down pit lane, because Montine and Shane Connor, they are in a bit of a duel here with regards to strategy. Now, Montine was 2.5 seconds ahead coming into the pit. How will it change as they both go for servicing? Steve Hobbs, meanwhile, we see him being chased still by Darren Sharples, but don't worry, we're going to come back to the Montine versus Connor moment in a very short moment. And well, as we do see Hobbs here carrying on, no pressure from Sharples, at least for now, but they both leave at about the same time, do Montine and Connor. The difference in the pit lane time, in fact, 2 seconds in the stationary stop there. So Shane Connor has gained a lot of time back, but remember now, he's got to wait just as long as Montine to get off the limiter, so we will see that gap open back up once again for a brief moment. It looks quite close. Montine comes off the limiter, then does none other than Shane Connor. And meanwhile, that is Craig Hewlett coming on side by side here. That's unexpected. Now, Hewlett, of course, did pit a lot early. He pitted on lap number 5. If he can go to the end of the race after pitting on lap number 5, well, that's going to be a huge amount of fuel saving he'll need to do all turns. It just goes to show you how little fuel they need to take here today. Although with so many acceleration zones, I mean to say, well, definitely you would imagine they're going to need quite a bit of fuel. Hewlett's pit time was 12.7 seconds. Meanwhile, by comparison, Andrew Montine at 16.8, Shane Connor 15.08 for their stationary time. So perhaps Hewlett here really on a fuel saving strategy. If he makes it work, well, it's definitely going to be magic. We'll have to see whether it will work out in reality. And well, there is the gap between Montine and Connor, and the gap back to 2.4 seconds there. So Shane Connor had the quicker pit stop in terms of stationary time, but in the end was not able to really bring the gap down as much as he would have liked to, and he'll definitely feel that now as we go a bit deeper into the race distance. But from them, what else is happening afoot? Well, perhaps the bigger thing that's happening further up the road. Richard Simnor and Harvey Wheeler still together, and Harvey still all over the back of Simnor as they roar the way in towards turn number 10. And interesting, you can see the change of lines here as they make the way in towards this right-hander. Now, what you'll notice is mid-engine rear drive cars, which can be a bit more pointed towards the apex, they actually brake practically in the middle of the road for turn 9 to straighten their way into turn 10. Whereas for both Simnor and Harvey Wheeler, taking a much more convert turn 9 and 10 into a single quarter approach, whereby essentially they're going so deep at 9 on the outside to then roll the car to a U-shaped approach through turn number 10. It's interesting how the drivetrains and the driver's preferences of how they drive the cars really change the nature of some of the corners here at Misano, and that's what makes it such a good four-wheel racing circuit. It's the fact you have a lot of corners here which are designed, you can tell this circuit's been designed for motorcycle racing with how wide it is, and also the way the corners naturally sweep to allow riders to go down onto a knee to turn through the corner. But put all four wheels here where our drivers can't put their knees down on the road, or if they have done so, we'll definitely say it's gone very wrong to the bottom of the car, and understandably now they really have so many different ways of skinning these corners. But meanwhile, we do see Darren Sharples. He has found his way past Steve Hobbs, and down in turn 14 as we're waxing lyrical there about how our elite drivers are driving, and we'll change of position just about. But as they've made the way on through and towards another lap, we'll get a replay of that shortly, how exactly things did change. As no more pit stops at least this time round, so still a few drivers yet to pit. A lot of question marks about that. But here we go, ladies and gentlemen, for a look back how Darren Sharples finally cleared Steve Hobbs. So this was coming through turn 12-13. Hobbs in the end looked in control, ran a little bit wide there, and in fact got caught up on the curb, and you can see as he pulled the car off the curb, the front end unsettled. So for Steve Hobbs, a small mistake, but it had a significant consequence, and that consequence was he's now a full place in the Pro Class, at least on the road. So back to live racing we come, and still more to be done for Steve Hobbs if he wants to try and take that place back. But Darren Sharples also proving why he's definitely very capable in the old dudes in cars Porsche. But from them, back to the very front of the field, Andrea Miato still carrying on his journey, leader overall and in the elite class by 1.5 seconds over William Arneson. Arneson there, Hayden Miller behind, and Henrik Riestrander for 1.5 seconds. This top four, it is starting to spread a little bit, but it seems as though this is a rather manufactured spreading, whereby I think some drivers are cooling the tyres down, some are trying to save some fuel and thinking thinking about the strategy here. And well, you want to be right on the back of a rival, no doubt about it, but there is a natural point whereby when you're within 5/10 of a second and closing for a long period of time, you are just running into a wall of dirty air and you are overheating the front end of the car more and more. And the net result is you're actually taking away front tyre life. But as we do see, Pasquarello trying to run away from Saunders and Casper Brotner. Well, Brotner right now trying to find his way on past these two. Still trying to make his way up the order, trying to take 7th place back in the elite class if he can. It won't quite recover into 6th, which is where he started in the class, but it will be coming close to it. It will be some degree of compensation. And be pleased with that if he can. We have had a bit of an incident for Steve Hobbs since we've looked away, unfortunately, for Hobbs. So we'll try and get a replay of that when we can a bit later on. But he has just made his way into the pit lane from what we're hearing in my ear. So Steve Hobbs has had the mother of all in laps, which has all gone sorts of wrong. And, well, definitely now that might come down the order. As Brockner still stays glued to the back of Saunders and Pasquarello for now. 3 different cars, and indeed with those 3 different manufacturers. It does seem to be each driver right now seeing the strengths and weaknesses, and I do wonder if the old dudes in cars amnesia drive whether they set up the car to run in clear air, because it does seem as though as soon as he's found himself down the order, things have just not been as clear cut as he was in terms of pace earlier on. But as he now makes round to that back stretch, well, that BMW will look very quick in relation to the Mustang. Very similar cars in terms of straight line speed until they get to 5th and 6th gear. That's where we do see the Mustang really gain a bit on the balance of performance at most circuits, although there have been some weird outliers, such as at the Nürburgring, where the Mustang always does seem to have a lot of pace compared to a lot of other cars in the category, particularly if there's a bit of rain. But as we do come back to the front of the field, onto lap 22, Andrea Miato goes, and no sign of him wanting to pit as of yet. Indeed, he'll be the very last to pit if he can help it. I think his game plan is to simply make sure that his journey is one where he's got all the clear track in front of him, all the way until he hit the fuel gauge says you must come in. William Arneson, Hayden Miller and Henrik Strand will try to follow suit if they can. But there is your base for right at the back of the quartet right now, with all 4 drivers have made the way past Shane Connor. But Shane Connor right now in a very different race of his own by comparison, albeit it does seem as though Connor has lost out a bit versus Andrew Montaigne. I think he might have been involved in a slight off that's cost him some time. He's actually lost quite a bit in relation, and it has been on the previous lap. He's lost 4 seconds somewhere. As we continue to ponder on that, we've got a few more pit stops playing out. Reece Saunders will come into the pit lane. He's still being serviced there. And a long pit stop for Reece Saunders, in fact. This is much longer than anticipated. The Altitude Freedom Esports driver just sat there at the moment. Well, Saunders got a problem in the pits because he has been there now for a long time. And, well, I wonder whether he's perhaps taken all 4 tyres, because if so, that's going to make that pit stop a lot longer. The only other thing I can imagine is that perhaps he's picked up a stop and go for speeding into the pit lane. We unfortunately don't have that data. We will try and find out when we can, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, we are just taking a look back through our logs at the moment, what's happened in the pit lane. Saunders has just been released, but the answer to that question is, as to what's happened, and in the end for Reece Saunders, no, it's just a very long pit stop for him. So the only thing we can imagine is perhaps they have changed all 4 tyres on that car, and well, for Saunders, it's been such a long pit stop at this point that I think right now he's put himself right out the running order in the elite category. He will have fresh tyres on the car, most likely, but that's not the way he's wanted it to go whatsoever. But look into on screen here, Pasquarello still with Brockner behind. These two now will be clear of Saunders, although they won't know that until they do make the way out the other side of this race. Saunders definitely having a nightmare pit stop, and that's going to put him out of contention most likely now for the Elite Championship with a round to go. It will now all come down to essentially what will be the top 2 in the championship, and here they are on screen again. Andrea Miato and William Arneson, with Hayden Miller and none other than what will be Henrik Strand, both being side characters in the narrative. Albeit, can they make themselves main characters here today? That is still yet to be seen, where pit stop's still quite far away. But looking to the front of the interclass meanwhile, here's Robin Pownier, 3.6 seconds ahead of none other than Martin Kenyon, and the lap times recently have started to swing the way of Robin Pownier. Now, it's not to say that Martin Kenyon is struggling necessarily, but what may have happened is where Kenyon has been pushing so hard to stay with Pownier in the early stages, perhaps that Lamborghini now is starting to see its tyres come back to bite it. It is a car that is quite unique. Not many drivers do take the Lamborghini in the GT3 class. And some would say it's the car that in the end is going to be the proverbial widowmaker of a driver on the simulator, albeit in real life it's a very popular car. It has proven to be a popular car, gradually diminishing in popularity over the last couple of years, but I do believe that may be due to financial considerations rather than the car itself. But the Evo 1, definitely one of those cars that is very rewarding to a driver, is able to get used to the fact that it's very sensitive over its rear end, much like the Audi R8 Evo 2 LMS, and of course both cars powered by the same 4.8 litre V10 engine, the absolute screamer of an engine that is sadly dying dying out, and indeed Lamborghini soon to move to their own Lamborghini-engined GT3 entry, if I remember correctly. It should be arriving within the next year or so, although I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. I'm sure somebody will put it in the chat. And also do keep in mind, of course, the fact that we do have the situation whereby we will see Audi with the customer cars and the Audi R8 gradually being phased out, with Audi moving entirely away from GT3 racing in some respects and trying to put their energies into Formula 1. But as Martin King rolls his way through, clipping the apexes here, that's the only clipping you'll see today, and coming up towards what will be turn number 4. Well, right now, number 11 driver here, making sure that he keeps Robin Powney within earshot and eyesight, and on that last lap, he was a half a second faster. So it's not over for Kenyon yet, perhaps just simply having a couple of laps where he's cooling the car down and going back on the attack, getting ready for a pit stop. But there's Daniel Paynes, and behind there's David Young. And now David Young's a very interesting driver here for Logistical Nightmare Racing, because he has come through the field over time. And why there's a degree of intrigue about this is the fact that having started at the very back, well, you've got pit stop still playing out, as we do see Rob Windsor being passed by Matthew Croft down the start-finish straight. Windsor not putting up the fight there because he's yet to pit, whereas Croft has pitted, and I think he's aware of that, so he decides he doesn't want to put himself in the way. But given the fact we've had quite a few inter-drives pit, including Craig Hewlett, including Andrew Montine, and also none other than Shane Connor, well, where exactly is David Young going to fit into the picture? Because Daniel Paynes there in third, we believe before the pit stops, Paynes was fighting for 5th and 6th in the class, so David Young has made an absolutely huge effort out of this, and we haven't had that many retirements in the class either, to be fair. We did lose, before we went racing, Alex Brown, as well as Andrew Fellows and James Connolly, and we have lost since the start of the race. Ryan Littermore with that huge spin at turn number 5 into 6 really being the death knell for his race, but otherwise we've still got the majority of the interclass out there. Grant Miller, of course, had a bit of an instant earlier on that we didn't quite see. Shane Connor's had a bit of a moment, and he does battle side by side. Oh, hold up a second, that's getting a bit contentious between these two. And we'll put away the faults in the moment to the wider picture as Martin King is into the pit lane. And, well, meanwhile, Shane Connor here fighting with Reece Saunders. They're fighting for overall position. I think Connor here definitely has something to say, battling with the elite driver. They're allowed to fight, but just keep in mind, it's not worth any points fighting with a driver in another class. It's only worth track position. And we see behind there, Sean Connor. Well, the race is not going right for the Connor Bros drivers at the moment. And Reece Saunders out-braking himself there into the hairpin. Shane Connor going for the switchback. But I think this is getting a little bit red-tempered here, and we don't mean the colour of the car on Shane Connor's machine. But Sean Connor in the back here right now. Can he help his brother out? That's going to be a fault. Although Sean Connor will be thinking to himself, well, this kind of needs to stop, guys, because I've got my own aspirations in the pro class. And when the day's not gone quite right for Sean Connor, he'll want to try and move forward when he can. But coming in towards that braking zone. Oh, there's contact! And Saunders to the back there is Shane Connor. And Shane Connor propelled out into the gravel there. Well, I think there'll be a word between the two of them after the racing today. I don't think any malice was meant, but I think Reece Saunders trying to go for the switchback under trail braking there and just tap the rear of Connor's car just as he was trying to get the nose in. And, well, literally millimetres difference, but in those millimetres have made a massive difference, and Shane Connor's race has gone backwards, and suddenly that is going to be Nick Parks going around the outside of him. So Parks now up into 9th on the road in interclass. But where exactly is that on strategy as David Young's into the pit lane and leaving it? So where is Young in the wider mix? He's actually coming out here in 7th place in Inter. Oh, Goodness, comes right onto the path there of Reece Saunders, who holds no punches back. And meanwhile, Sean Connor up the inside immediately. So David Young getting a bit of a rude welcome back to the circuit. But to be fair to him, he's moved up to 7th place in interclass. He'll be pleased with punch with that. But more pit stops now playing out here. It's pit stop season down there, as we do see Maxime Philippard make his way onwards. The pro leader here, he drops to 2nd in the pro class, with the fact that we do have Carl Roy still going and Darren Sharples as well, but Maxime Philippard definitely getting this pit stop done nice and tidy, and, well, we believe this is going to be for the win now in the pro class for him. Richard Simnor coming out the pit lane. He has left Pietro Antonio Pasquarello and Casper Rotner to the pit, and well, Simnor carrying on, as meanwhile we'll have to wait and see where the likes of Harvey Wheeler will be, because Harvey Wheeler's still out there on the road, but definitely we are starting to see the end of the fuel tanks in. That may give us the suggestion that as a result, Craig Hewlett, the man who's currently 5th place in the interclass, may have to see another pit stop, because the leaders are coming in with the best part of 20 minutes to go, or say 15 minutes at the very latest, and in fact Andrea Miato's now into pits from the lead of the race, then surely for the man who has come in on lap number 5, it's not going to work out in terms of going a single stop. But we will see, as there is William Arneson making his way on past Andrew Montine, but Montine a lap down. Remember, he's still got a pit stop to go. Hayden Miller the same. Andrea Miato leaving the pit lane shortly, albeit he'll be stopping firstly. And as we do see Henrik Riestrand coming on down, well, this is definitely going to prove pivotal here in terms of those pit stops. But the battles right now on circuit, well, we've got a few. They're towards the back of the field. Grant Miller chasing after Shane Connor. We do need to get a replay of what exactly happened between Connor and what was Saunders. We will get that in due course. A bit of a contentious moment between those two. But as we do see these drivers coming onwards, well, right now Grant Miller 9 has an opportunity to pick up some more points here with Rob Windsor following them around, but that is, of course, the pro driver in 9th of his class, following 2 inter drivers battling for 9th of their class. But in terms of the elite class in the pit lane, there's Henrik Strand. So where's Andrea Miato? Miato's already back out onto circuit for Tartan Redstech, and the gap growing there, as you will see Strand in the rear of the picture, and the delta in the pit lane being a whole second there. So Strand's lost time. He's now 6 seconds behind Miato, so Miato's had a quick stop. Cole Roy comes out the pit lane, and he decides to give up the lead of the pro class to Maxim Philippar. So Philippar now moves into second of the class, and it will be Darren Sharples yet to pit, but he's going the longest of the pros. He's done a brilliant job of doing so. So well done to Darren Sharples for that. That's definitely a huge effort. In terms of those who are still yet to pit, there's not many of them out there. Indeed, we are just waiting now for 1 or 2 drivers to make their pit stops, including Arneson, Miller, and Wheeler in your top 3. And then Darren Sharples is the only other outlier there, currently in 6th place. But as soon as we mention their names, here they go into the pit lane on call. I can promise you it's not a coincidence. And as William Arneson comes on down, Hayden Miller as well there, and Harvey Wheeler, well, he's still got to make his way on in. He's a bit further back, understandably. And we're all over back there with the SimCoach machine of none other than what we Steve Hobbs. Although Hobbs will be grateful for the fact he will see the freewheeler racer by Phoenix car pull into the pit and no longer obfuscate his ability to focus on the road. So here comes Wheeler and down onto the pit limiter. Doesn't need to do anything special. But what about Arneson? What about Miato? There's Arneson still waiting to go. We look to the blimp camera. Where is Miato? He's coming down now into Misano corner. This could be quite close, to be fair, because Arneson's already leaving the pits. He had a 2-second faster pit stop compared to his teammate, 1 second faster compared to Miato. And well, he's not at the pit limiter line yet. It's a long way to go. And as we do see Andrea Miato making his way through turns 1 and 2, he is going to come out on top by looks of things. And it's going to be very close between these two, but in the end it's not enough for William Arneson. He comes out half a second behind, closing a 3/10 into the braking zone, but right now William Arneson's got to get those tyres absolutely switched on. If he can do so, he may be able to go on the attack versus Miato. Otherwise, this might be Andrea Miato's race to lose now, as they roar the way down towards the hairpin. Being so close between the two of them there. Hayden Miller as well. He's leapt ahead of Henrik Reed Strand. You see Strand in the rear of the picture there. Where on earth has that Ford Mustang fallen to? It's in the strategy, I can tell you that, with Hayden Miller having a very short stop there, as short as William Arneson's. So therefore, Arneson and Miller are being the biggest gainers in the top 4 in the pit stops. Meanwhile, Henrik Strand has lost out, and Andrea Miato right now just looking a little bit vulnerable. Now, to be fair, one thing we have seen over the course of this season is in the second stint, normally Betafrost do become the stronger drivers compared to Tartan Redstech. Andrea Miato, for all the consistency he's had normally in the first stint, and even in the second stint for the most part, Miato just starts to lose. It's about 1/10 to 1/10.5 over the final stint distance. He loses that time per lap, and that is where Betafrost are able to catch up. It's just one thing that does happen every so often, and we saw it, of course, in the wet conditions at Nürburgring, when Miato in the end was losing out time in the second stint. But here now, in these dry conditions with the sun out on the circuit, will he be able to get it back together and become a home hero, or will it be the fact he'll go from a hero to 0 and instead it'll be the Norwegian driver William Arneson who can level the playing field going into that season finale? Well, so many questions to be asked and so many to be answered. Further back, we've had a bit of a moment there for Casper Brotner, so Max Wheeler comes on through and takes 8th place back in the elite class off of the old Duty Cars driver. We'll get a replay of that when we can, as meanwhile Grant Miller here looking for a move on Shane Connor. Looks like the inside, that's not going to work, but Shane Connor goes a bit deep there. Now Miller almost follows him off the road, to be fair. So in the end, that's a bit of hypnosis there, trying to follow the car in front as close as possible to the fact you also follow it into its mistakes as Grant Miller loses the rear of the car, coming out at turn number 6. Well, that's into the barrier there. He gets it back together, but a big snap loose there, and just a bit too much power and steering lock, and suddenly the rear will spin up like that. And well, Nick Parks right now, you'll see in the rear of the picture there, Parks gets to close back up again, but he is a bit of a way back right now. And with 15 minutes left to go, well, the battles have definitely quietened down, but some changes have been afoot, and we've got some replays to bring you, ladies and gentlemen, including, of course, the altercation between Shane Connor and none other than Rhys Saunders. And here we go for a trip back in time. So this was the pair battling, and Saunders getting quite close, but under braking here. Well, what exactly happened? He went from one side to the other. He did try the switchback, but unfortunately just tapping the rear of Sean Connor at the last moment there. I don't think it was intended, but indeed you can see the time, and the time wasn't quite right. So that's how it happened. This is what it looked like on board from Rhys Saunders' perspective. And again, you can see here, much more aggressive under braking into turn 13. Looked to the outside and then went for the switch. But because Connor had already broken quite early there compared to what Saunders was expecting, as he went for the switch right there, he started to commit. And at that point, you cannot back off, and it went wrong. But still, I'm sure they'll talk about it afterwards, and they'll be able to make amends potentially. But after that happened, well, what else has happened since then? Not too much, and therefore we do make our way back to your live racing. Indeed, all the things that have primarily happened, when we do say not too much, to be fair, I think that's a little bit of cutting it rudely, is the fact that we had all of our pit stops play out. So, we also did have that moment for what was Casper Brotner, albeit we haven't quite been able to catch that on replay, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. What we are going to catch instead is something that is very much about to happen, and we have a lead battle here for the lead and overall, and Andrea Miato and William Arneson together right now. You can see that Hayden Miller flashes headlights. Miato seeing the headlights flashing for William Arneson. Arneson goes up the inside. He's going to go for it. Miato says to him, no. Squeeze into the apex here, and it's going to be trading paint between these two. And, well, there's always a saying of red versus blue, but you're very much seeing it right now as the blue machine there. Little tap to the rear of Arneson's car from Miato to break in, and it's going to be very close there. Door rubbing all the way. And, well, William Arneson right now won't be too pleased about that as he makes his way up to speed. And I think right now he's going to be thinking to himself, hold up a second, how exactly does that play fair? Well, Andrea Miato wants it, and I think both drivers here right now will be thinking about this one afterwards. Could we have done a bit better? But to be fair, they're going to give us plenty of entertainment here with 13 minutes to go. And Arsenal now coming back once again, albeit we ride on board with the challenger. And of course, the man who's second in the championship, trying to bring down the championship leader. Look, it's the inside of turn 14. And look at the confidence that Arneson has. Again, perhaps it's been he's been saving the tyres all the way through the first stint of the race. And now he has the compound life to work with. Remembering the fact they can't change all 4 tyres in the pit lane. They normally only have time to change 1 or 2 at most. But if they don't change any tyres, well, it's all about how much tyre life you do save. But Arneson running a bit wide there. And that's going to be a slowdown penalty for Arneson. So he has to give up second place. Hayden Miller now comes through. Now, what can Miller do? Is he in the right mental space today? We know that when he's on a high, he really rolls with it. When he's on a low, however, he does roll low as well. But right now, is he shooting for 6? He's already rolling snake eyes once. We'll have to see as he comes down in towards turn number 4. And will the Corvette driver here thinking to himself that with the cornering abilities of that Corvette, in fact, he's very comfortable in the car, he may just be able to dethrone Miato from the lead of this race when Arneson was not able to do so. But definitely very contentious between both drivers there. And will elbows out every step of the way. As they roll away on past our static camera. Well, right now, there's your top 3 to go. And Henrik Strand, 3.5 seconds back. He'll be hoping he can get involved in this battle when he's able to do so. As meanwhile, further down the order, we have had a swap of position for 4th in Pro. And as Darren Sharp was getting ahead of his teammate, Hendrik Zilka. And right now, the Old Dudes in Cars teams looking to bag a double top 5 here in Pro. They'll be pleased to punch with that. Albeit I don't think they've got a candle to light versus Matthew Croft right now, who is 5 seconds up the road, 3rd in the class here for Axis SimSport Z. It's been a very solid drive for Matthew Croft to be going for a podium here. And well, by comparison, Kyle Roy up the road, a sizable gap to Kyle Roy to the best tune of what is none other than 15.5 seconds, and he in turn is 15 seconds down off a Maxim Philippar. So it does look as though the podium place in the Pro class are mostly settled here, albeit perhaps 3rd has got a question mark slightly hanging over it with the growing presence in the rearview mirror there of the Old Dudes in Cars machines for Matthew Croft, and in Inter by comparison, well, Robin Powney in control to a degree, 5 seconds clear of Martin Kenyon. And in the pit stops, well, it was very similar pit times end to end between Powney and Kenyon. But it seems though since the stop, Martin Kenyon has lost out a little bit in terms of pace. The average lap pace right now, well, the last lap actually, Kenyon was the quicker driver to 100th, but the natural gain has been in favour of Powney. And can he just simply hold on for the rest of this with Craig Hewlett still closing? Now remember, Craig Hewlett pitted on lap 5 much earlier than when the pit window really opened, which was on lap number 14 for Sean Connor. So we are wondering whether Craig Hewlett right now can go to the end here, if he's going to pull off a bit of one pit stop magic, or whether he is going to have to make a quick splash and dash to the pits, which if so, that would then give Andrew Montine the 3rd place spot here, and where he would be giving it to a teammate effectively, albeit the sister team driver Axis SimSport Z, but it would mean that for Craig Hewlett, suddenly the championship battle would be going down to a 2-horse race between Andrew Montine and none other than Robin Powney come the season finale. And Hewlett could become kingmaker, but he could not make himself king at Imola. That would be the problem. So, therefore, I think he's going to be on a fuel stone strategy to the very end. And are the lap times indicative of it? No, not quite at the moment. As in fact, Hewlett was quicker than Montine on that last lap. So we are keeping an eye on that. But all eyes looking from them to a bit further down the order. We do have, of course, 5th for Daniel Payes at the moment in the Inter class. Another top 5 would definitely be coming his way quite nicely, with David Young 4.5 seconds back and trying to close. But between the two of them is Sean Connor there. And Sean Connor with this result today, that would definitely see him go backwards, but he'd still be, I do believe, ahead of Nathan Anstis in the Pro Championship. However, Kyle Roy, if things were to finish as they currently stand, will be very much in a comfortable spot. But David Young, the man who started 13th in the Interclass, what a day it's been for him so far. And he's got a comfortable gap over Tom Wheeler and Alexander Vingmark. Here are the two. There's Vingmark, and you'll see Wheeler just in front of him there. And Vingmark is closing down Tom Wheeler for 7th place in the Interclass. So never say never. He might just be able to take this right at the very end if he can. But as he tries to do so, Justin Noel as well on the move forward, albeit he's got the company of Matthew Croft behind him. The pro driver catching up to the 10th place elite driver. Right now, Croft, I think, is starting to spoil for a little bit of a battle between the two of them, albeit it'll be overall position only. But as Grant Miller's coming to the pit lane again for a second pit stop, so that's going to be a splash and dash for him. Shane Connors still in the pit lane after making his trip in earlier on. But we do see there Noel being passed by Matthew Croft. Goes up the inside then. Just Noel goes a bit wide as a result. Well, in the end, Lee Privateer losing out, and so does Robin Parriner coming through. I think for Justin right now, he won't be too upset about that because the driver's a different class, and therefore he's not losing any points or actual positions in reality. But meanwhile, we take a look back in time for the big battles that we did see a little bit earlier on, starting of course with what was William Arneson versus Andrea Miato. So this was the battle for the lead back on lap 29, and it was a look up the inside from William Arneson, went all in, and then the two of them door to door as they exited the hairpin. But now Miato are not able to pick up as much speed coming out the corner. Arneson thought he got clear here, and well, in the end defended initially to the inside, but Miato cut it so finely and ran along the door there of the Beta Frost car. In the end, they were able to keep it in track limit, so arguably Miato will say he never pushed Arneson off the road, but definitely a bit of door riding between the two of them, and well, that enabled Miato to hold on there, and Hayden Miller then got close, but there was no further change after that, because as much as Arneson wanted to get close into turns 12 and 13, in the Mercedes not having the ability on the corners by comparison, and that's how they were to stay. We then did have this from none other than Darren Sharples. Only a bit moments later, this was Sharples making a move on Hendrik Zilka for fourth place in the pro class. Both of the drivers making the way in towards turn number 13, and in the end, sneaking up the inside there, and Zilka giving him all the space to work with, and we're making sure not to fall off the road as well. And then we did have this moment for Justin Noah only moments ago with Matthew Croft and Robin Parriner finding the way through. Albeit for Justin, it was a smooth run out of turn 14, but then going into turn 15, took all the curb, and the car snapping on him there. We didn't quite see that, and in the end, that's why he rejoined and let Matthew Croft go there and having to keep the car twitching on a straight line. Not a comfortable car by the looks of things, as we have had Craig Hewlett coming to the pits, ladies and gentlemen, as we make our way back to your live racing. So we do have confirmation that Hewlett has had to come in the end. He could not make what was that lap 5 pit stop work all the way to the end, and sadly that will demote him down the order. But what does it mean in terms of positions? Well, certainly it means in the interclass, Andrew Martin moves up to 3rd or 18th overall. Hewlett drops all the way down to 8th in class, but is still ahead of Nick Parks by a couple of seconds. So he will be safe there, but sadly for Craig Hewlett, it cannot be a bit of magic in relation to strategy today. And if he was to fuel save to get there, we would have needed to fuel save for about 5 laps, and we would have had to have driven the best part of at least a second to 2 seconds off the lead lap pace for the interclass. It definitely would have been a situation whereby we suspect he perhaps could have remained inside the top 5, but it would have been a very hard strategy to call there. And indeed, I think in the end, going for the 2-slot strategy, whilst it's going to be painful, it's probably the best he could do in reality. But all the way to the front of the field, here is Hayden Miller, still on the attack as we ride aboard the dashboard of the Phoenix Racing 281, getting the gradual reflection out of the dashboard with the sun. But to be fair, we can see quite clearly out the front as Miato runs a little bit wide there, coming out of turn number 6. But these drivers right now pushing each other. William Arneson has fallen back by comparison. So Hayden Miller now, knowing there's one more shot at this, albeit he has got a few more laps. And the Corvette driver here building the pace, encroaching little by little. Miato, meanwhile, just trying to keep his head down. But things are turning the tide on the Scottish driver here. But given the fact he will have paid witness to what played out between Miato and Arneson, he'll know that when he needs to make this move, when he plans to do it, he's got to make it as firmly as possible. He cannot leave any gaps. He cannot leave any openings, because to do so, Andrea Miato will immediately go back on the attack there and look for the places back. And Andrea Miato looking to tie things up for wins in the elite class, trying to make himself a 4-time winner alongside Arneson, and will take the championship advantage going to Imola. But coming down in towards turn 14, can Miller steal that win away? Indeed, after this lap, on lap 35, they will have another 3 to the finish line, if our maths is correct. And well, coming out of this corner, the gap now down to 3.5 tenths here with the Concertina effect in play. And Miller knowing he's getting closer and closer every lap. He's looking very quick out there, but so is Miato. And Miato right now just keeping his head down and hoping he's got a little bit of tyre life left just to give him that comfort factor. But this Corvette definitely making moves. From them, we make some moves further down. Here is Casper Rotner chasing after Max Wheeler. They're fighting over 8th in the elite class. We have Pietro Antonio Pasquarello 5 seconds up the road, so he's walked away from this battle over time, and with the difficulties in the pit lane for Reece Saunders as well. Well, right now for Casper Rotner, this is all about trying to end inside the top 10 overall and take a few more points. And Max Wheeler defend as well as he can. He's enjoyed some good battles as Max. But to be fair, he won't be wanting to battle with the oversteer. Come off the back of that BMW by looks things out of 14. The car snapping on him. and in the end he had to arrest it under control like a ball. We're coming out of the corner right now. He's got another 3 to go here, and Casper Rotner close, but not close enough to make a move. In terms of battles elsewhere in the field, there's not too many other battles for class position at this point, although it is interesting to say at the moment that Darren Sharples is close on Robin Pownier, and just in front of Pownier is Matthew Croft by half a second. So Sharples has had a big turn of pace over the last couple of laps. In fact, the last lap he was a second quicker than both of them in front. Could Sharples just yet steal away a podium for Matthew Croft? Because if so, I think he'd be absolutely grinning with that, but he's got a bit of work to do if he wants to make that happen. We'll see, as meanwhile Max Wheeler runs wide out of turn number 6, and as he does so, let's be Casper Brotner coming past, and the freewheeler racing by Phoenix Driver seeming to yield the place there, and that's unfortunate for him, but Brotner finds his way through, and his BMW definitely not wanting to cooperate with him right at the very end of the race distance. So Brotner upwards, Wheeler tries to come back here in towards turns 9 and 10, but the freewheeler racing by Phoenix Driver too far back, and we know the brakes on that BMW similar to the Mustang, almost said the Aston Martin there, goodness me, and once they make the way out of that corner, right now the Ford Mustang will bolt away. But back to Sharples and Pownier. Well, this is definitely a lot of intrigue here, because for Darren Sharples, if he can find his way past here with 2 laps to go, well, he'll then be able to go attack him with Matthew Croft, and I don't think Croft has got much left in the tank here. As Sharples looks to the inside, he wants this now. He can see what is third place in front of him, so here he goes on the inside in towards turn 13. Pownier gives him the space, to be fair, and the interleader lets it go. No, and he's got enough of a gap to Martin Kenyon, who doesn't need to worry. Where is Kenyon? I hear you ask. There he is, coming into the camera shot right now, but Martin Kenyon for DXT Motorsports here, 4 to 5 seconds behind Robin Pownier. It sways back and forth, but right now second place here in the Inter-class would be a huge result for him, and one that he'd be very glad to take, all things considered. And I do believe for Martin Kenyon this would in fact be only his 3rd time on the podium, but it would be a season best performance of 2nd, whereas previously he's finished 3rd both times he's been on the podium in rounds 2 and 3. Back to your leader we go then, penultimate lap here. Miato still ahead of Hayden Miller, 4 tenths is the gap, and meanwhile, as we do see William Arneson coming on through, 2 seconds further adrift there, with Henrik Strand now falling to 7 seconds behind, where it seems like Beta Frost have run out of a little bit of steam. However, the flip side of the coin is, we're 3rd and 4th here today. It will mean that in the Teams Championship, that's Axis Simsport said, they will gain a little bit. But meanwhile, speaking of gaining, that is 2.5 tenths. They're going through the final corner. Hayden Miller's on a charge, and it's 1 more lap to go here. Is this going to be Andrea Miato to take a home win, or will Hayden Miller spoil the home heroes party and make it his first win in some time? Well, they've got 1 tour of the circuit to go, and Miato right now really struggling as the camera's almost taken off the back of his car by Hayden Miller, who gets a really good run through turn number 3. Looking around the outside to 4, he goes then. Will Miato go deep here? Miller's going to try and go around the outside, so in the end he's going to try and run all the way round, but then he cuts it nice and early. That keeps him right glued to the bumper, Miato, as they now make the way onwards towards turn number 8. Miller now hoping that this Corvette has got enough speed here. It's 5.5 litre V8 machinery, but getting ready to go into the braking zone. Miato puts the car in the middle of the road. Miller does not decide to duck to the inside into turn 8. He's thinking about the bigger pictures. Hold up a second. We've lost William Arneson for this race. He's retired as well, as I'm just hearing in my ear. So Arneson's out on the final lap due to a technical issue with the car. So Henry Strand moves forward, and here comes Miller. Miller dives up the inside. He goes for it here. He leaves as late as possible. He's going to get ahead there. Now, can he outrun that Aston Martin all the way to turn 13? And at this point, Miato now is going to close little by little here. That gap is shrinking. 2 tenths it is initially, but making their way through the kink of 11 now. It's 1.5 tenths. Here comes Miato. Spooling up is the Aston Martin in towards turn number 12. Miller here defends. Miato looking to the outside. He's not going to be able to find it, but Miller makes sure to keep his eyes there. Miato looks to dive in. There's contact to the rear of his car. He's pushed forward, and as a result, Miato takes the lead back. Now Miller on the back of him there. He won't be too pleased about that, but can he find a way to go all into the final corner? There's only 1 more turn to go here as the clock strikes 0. Will Miller go for it? No, he won't. And for Andrea Miato, wheels a bump to the back of Miller's car, meaning as they drag race away to the line, the checker flag will fall, and it is going to be Andrea Miato takes victory here in Italy, and the Misano World Circuit ahead of Hayden Miller, who takes home 2nd. Henrik Strand will come home in 3rd, as we see the Beta Australia coming on through. Maxim Philippar, meanwhile, he makes his way into the last corner, and for the Belgian driver for Gaston Motorsport, this is the win that escaped to Nürburgring. He is victorious in the Pro Class, 4th overall, ahead of Harvey Wheeler, who comes on through shortly. And to bring on home what will be 5th place there, or 4th in the elite class, another great performance from him. Richard Simler just behind there, taking on home what will be none other than 6th place. And then Kyle Roy comes on home, runner-up in the pro class. And then that championship crown is almost his. Pietro Antonio Pasquarello comes home in 8th, just ahead of Casper Brotner in the rear of your picture. And Max Wheeler in the end couldn't quite find a way to move forward, but what an effort from him as BMW, and a great recovery from Brotner. Matthew Croft comes on home, 3rd in pro there for Axis Sim Sport Z as he crosses the finish line just ahead of Darren Sharples, and then it will be Robin Paunier who rounds off his run to into victory and levels the playing field, because Martin Kenyon comes home in 2nd in the interclass, 16th on the road, and then it will be a further 11 seconds back to Andrew Montaigne for Axis Sim Sport Z. 3rd in class today, and knowing his advantage, Robin Paunier now has been slashed. It's minimal going to the season finale, but what a day it's been in the interclass. Reece Saunders, meanwhile, frustration building today, and a long pit stop as well, taking way too long. 18th he could achieve ahead of Ross Young. Daniel Pays, meanwhile, 4th place in the interclass. Another solid drive from the 88 driver from Portugal ahead of Sean Connor. And well, 7th place then was the best he could do in the pro class, and really a missed opportunity today for him, and indeed so many drivers in the pro class. Nathan Anstis, by the way, finishing a lap down in 29th, 10th in pro. It's all gone wrong for so many of them, but with all the drivers now having completed their race, and William Marston with that last lap retirement due to a technical issue from 3rd in the race. Well, just before we do go to your race results, ladies and gentlemen, we do need to take a look back at that incredible battle between Andrea Miato and Hayden Miller, and there is a bit of a question mark hanging over what happened at turn number 14. And well, here is the replay to explain. So this was the battle between the drivers, as we do in the end leap away forward, and as they came down in towards that braking zone, well, it was Hayden Miller who took a big lunge up the inside there, went all in for the move, and what a lovely move it was. However, as these drivers roared the way onwards and up towards turn number 13, we knew that Miato was going to come back. There was no doubt about it, as we do ride aboard here with Miato's perspective. But was there a touch between them? We suspect there was based on the camera angle. He was always going to go for this, couldn't find it into 13, so then he decided to look to the inside of 14. And onto the brakes there. It was definitely a big bump there to the back of Hayden Miller's car. And, well, the immediate argument will be from the Phoenix Racing team. None other than it will be pushed to pass there for the win for Andrea Miato. But that will be for the stewards to take a look at. I suspect it will be reported. But what a crazy end to the race between these two. And Miato definitely the winner on the road. But I do wonder where will be winner in the stewards' room afterwards. But still, that's for the stewards to decide, not for us to decide here in the Conte booth. All we can say is definitely an exciting end to the race as we come back to your live circuit side pictures. And so as we do come back and the circuit falls silent, here are the race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we can see, after an incredible 60 minutes of racing in our penultimate round, round 9 of 10 in the UK SimRacing Community Sunday GT3 Championship Season 17, brought to you on iRacing and hosted by SimRacing International. From the Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli, it was Andrea Miato who took the victory on the road there, the Italian driver, the home hero for Tata Redstech, but knowing the pressure was on him throughout the race. And if it wasn't pressure from William Arneson, it was pressure from Hayden Miller, with the Phoenix Racing driver in the end having started in 4th, making his way to 2nd, but unfortunately couldn't quite take the win. Henrik Strand taking 3rd there for Beta Frost, and definitely today really the 4th best, and unfortunately he's had to pick up the place at the cost of his teammate. And then Maxim Philippard 4th on the road, but a pro win there for the Gassed Up Motorsport driver, and absolutely untouchable over the distance in his class. Harvey Wheeler taking 5th there for Freewheeler Racing by Phoenix, ahead of Richard Simnor, with the D-Story Racing driver a further 3 seconds adrift at the close. But indeed both drivers there push each other hard, and Wheeler gaining the upper hand in the strategic stakes, if not on the road. And then Kyle Roy, runner-up in the pro class, 7th overall. The Mirko Group M Academy driver, knowing that pro crown is almost his, and going into the season finale now, all he needs is a clutch full of points, and he will be your pro champion. Pietro Antonio Pasquarello taking 8th there for Tata Redstech. Enjoyed a good race, indeed moved forward over time, as Casper Brotner meanwhile dropped down after his run to the gravel on the open lap, but still the old dudes in cars amnesia driver recovering well there and showing he's able to drive well under pressure, as did Max Wheeler for Freewheeler Racing by Phoenix, only a 2nd behind at the finish line, completing your top 10. It was Matthew Croft in 11th there, 3rd of your pros for Axis Sim Sport Z, ahead of Darren Sharples, with the old dudes in cars midlife crisis driver definitely enjoying a very strong run all the the way through, but unfortunately could not find a way onto the podium, with Croft just having enough in the tank and surviving by 1 second at the finish. Robin Powney took 13th, and into win for him, and a very vital one now, his 3rd win of the season, and the Sim Coach driver bringing himself on parity with Andre Montine, and that's not just in terms of what his points, but also in terms of class wins now, and it means they are going to be practically dead even going into the season finale. Justin Noel taking 14th there, the privateer making his way through the field over time, ahead of Hendrik Zilka for Old Dudes and Cars Amnesia, and then it was 16th place, but a second place in the interclass of the season for Martin Kenyon, his best result of the season, and if things had worked out slightly differently today, we could have seen him taking his first win, but it wasn't to be for the DXT Motorsports driver, who just ran out of steam in the closing stages. Still, he was 11 seconds ahead of the championship leader in the interclass, and 3rd place Andre Montine, a good drive. He has to remember the fact right now that he can't afford to finish behind Robin Powney at the finish line next time. He took 17th then for Axis Sinsport Z, ahead of Rhys Saunders, with Ross Young and Daniel Pays completing a top 20, and Daniel Pays as well enjoying a good run to 4th place in the interclass there for Old Dudes in Cars Amnesia. Outside the top 20, in none other than 21st place, it was Sean Connor there for Connor Bros. He was a second clear of Steve Hobbs. Unfortunately for Sean Connor, a recovery drive that didn't quite come to a top 5, and it means that right now, whilst he will hold on to second in the championship, he is going to have lost a lot of ground to Kyle Roy. Meanwhile, it was a lap down from 23rd onwards for William Arneson, with the technical retirement for the Beta Ross drive from 3rd place, and sadly it does mean that now it's Andrea Miato's championship to lose effectively going into the season finale, and the Beta Ross drive will need a miracle at this point if he wants to make a huge upset happen. David Young, they're in 24th ahead of Tom Wheeler, and David Young, to be fair, coming from the back of the field for Logistical Nightmare Racing, one of the highlights of the day, ahead of Alexander Vingmart, the pair of them, and it was Craig Hewlett, Rob Windsor, Nathan Anstis, and Nick Parks completing a top 30, and well, Nathan Anstis and Nick Parks looking strong initially, but it all went backwards as the race went on. Your last finisher a lap down was Grant Miller in 31st, and then it was several laps down there with a retirement for Shane Connor, the Connor Bros driver losing out after the altercation with Rhys Saunders, and we also did see retirements there for Ashley Brooks, Ryan Littlemore, and also non-starts for Andrew Fellows, James Connolly, and Alex Brown. Then to the Elite class we go, and this is where, of course, the points are paid and made when it comes to the class finishing positions. And in Elite, Andrea Miata there, winner on the road, but we must emphasise that given the way the battle for the win ended at turn 14 with that contact. But again, we leave that to the stewards. We are only saying what we've seen on the cameras available to us, and we're passing no judgment. But the Tartan Red Tech driver, your winner here today, and with that win, levelling the number of wins versus none other than William Arneson, and means he extends his championship lead going into the season finale at Imola in a week's time. Hayden Miller, second there for Phoenix Racing, at best part of 8 seconds ahead of Henrik Strand, and for William Arneson, you couldn't make it up. The man who should be 3rd there, retiring on the final lap, his Mercedes engine giving way, and for Beta Ross, they'll be fuming at that one, knowing their points, which could have really propelled them back to the very top of the team's championship, have all gone astray. So instead, picking up the pieces, Henrik Strand, as we mentioned only moments ago, Harvey Wheeler as well, 4th there for Free Wheeler Racing by Phoenix, he'll be happy now. Now, it's not just the top 5, but the first spot off the podium, ahead of Richard Sinwell for DCW Racing, who showed a good turn of pace in the opening stint, but the latter stint definitely not coming through. Pietro Antonio Pasquarello there in 6th for Tartan Restec, breaking away in the late stage ahead of Casper Brotner and Max Wheeler, and behind the three-wheeler racing by Phoenix driver in a BMW that looked a handful. It was the priority of Justin Noel, with Rhys Saunders completing the finishers in 10th place there for Altitude Frame Esports, and then sadly the retirement for William Arneson, who will be classified as a finisher, but sadly a lap down there and only able to have the points for 11th place. Then to the Pro class we come, and here we can see it was a straightforward day in the sun for Maxim Philippard for Gassed Up Motorsport, 13.7 seconds ahead of Kyle Roy, with the Mirko Group M Academy driver in the end taking the run-up spot. But to be fair to him, he would have loved the win, but he'll be very happy with the fact when he looks back on the results and sees where his rivals have finished, he right now is definitely looking very comfortable at the front. Matthew Croft, 3rd there for Axis Sinsport Z, and rounding off the podium, another big haul of points for him, and it's definitely going to make him very happy, all things considered, in the fact the Axis Sinsport Z driver will now be definitely chasing down the top 3 right at the end of the season. Darren Sharp was taking 4th there for Old Dudes and Cars Midlife Crisis, ahead of his sister team driver from Amnesia of Hendrik Zilga. And the two of them swapping places towards the very end, but to be fair, double top 5, they'll be proud as punch with that. And we did have Ross Young in 6th place there for DXT Motorsport, ahead of Sean Connor, with Steve Hobbs completing the lead lap finishers in 8th there for Sim Coach. And after an early start that worked quite nicely, over time the Ford Mustang fell down the order. It was a lap down for both Rob Windsor and Nathan Anstis, the UKSimRacing Minish pair struggling today, and for Nathan Anstis, I like Sean Connor, both of them finishing outside the top 5 for the first time in a long time this season, right at the wrong time. We do believe that this result is essentially going to contribute potentially to their drop score for the season. But Kyle Roy right now will definitely be building that momentum, and what can they do in the season finale? Is it now a scrap between those two for second place, perhaps? Ashley Brooks, meanwhile, the sole retiree for Access Sport Z, 20 laps before the finish line, unfortunately his race came to a close. But then lastly, coming to the Interclass here. And what we can see, Robin Powney, your winner for Sim Coach by 5.4 seconds over Martin Kenyon for DXT Motorsports. But to be fair, that gap was a lot shorter as the race went on, and it was in the second stint where Powney was able to unleash his pace a little bit more and really able to tap into it, whereas Martin Kenyon had to settle for second. But the reality is, as Robin Powney now becomes a 3-time winner of the season to match Andrew Montaigne, Martin Kenyon having his best performance of the season, and you never know at Imola, could he become a 1-time winner for this season for DXT Motorsports? Andrew Montaigne, the championship leader, he will still be the championship leader, it should be clarified, but his lead will have been halved, and it won't be anywhere near as comfortable as it was before. And with that third place finish there for Access Sport Z, he'll be grateful to be on the podium, but knowing he's got more work to be done. Daniel Pays, fourth there for Old Dudes and Cars Amnesia, a further 18 seconds behind, but the last lead that finish at the Interclass. Well done to him, very solid drive, head of David Young for Logistical Nightmare Racing, who does take a top 5. Right at the close there. What an effort from him to come all the way from the back of the field. Ahead of Tom Wheeler there. Three-wheeler racing by Phoenix was just behind him at the finish line. Then we did see Alexander Vingmark with his customary 7th place there for what was Beta Frost ahead of Craig Hewlett, who did have to make that second pit stop in the end after pitting on lap number 5. The fuel tank couldn't go far enough, but he needed that pit stop after the open lap contact, and therefore it did mean his race was always going to be relegated towards the back end of the top 10. Nick Parks, 9th there. Disappointed with himself, I suspect, given the fact he was looking quick in the early stages, and Grant Miller as well with a mid-race incident cost him a chance for a top 5, taking 10th instead for Phoenix Racing. It was then 9 laps in, we saw the retirement of Shane Connor for Connor Bros, and we did see earlier retirements in the race for Ryan Littlemore, and also non-starts for Andrew Fellows, James Connolly, and Alex Brown. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that completes our run through of the race results, subject to any Sherwood's inquiries, and as our circuit here at Misano has definitely fallen silent, well, we've not got long before this broadcast falls silent. It's time for us now to wrap up. And thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to get on the grid for a future season of racing here at SimRacing International, whether it's in this series, which runs on Sundays, or alternatively any of our other series, well, the number one thing to do first and foremost is get into the official Discord. Even if we're currently not running something you like, we'd definitely love to have you part of the community. If you've got any ideas of series that we could potentially run, we're also very welcome to that. And all you need to do is go to that Discord link, join the community, say hi, and you're definitely in very safe hands here. And whether you're an esports professional all the way through to a rookie sim racer, there's a spot for you on the grid here at SimRacing International. Currently, of course, we do have multiple series ongoing, including our Thursday GT3 Championship, about to come to the end of Season 11 as of next week. And indeed, we're very much looking forward to seeing how it all plays out in the season finale there, with our 2 splits with 120 drives in total. We also do have the UKSimRacing Community Sunday GT3 Championship, which you've been tuning into today. And our season finale is only now a week away before we go on to Season 18. Indeed, we're coming back, we're banging season 18 as well. But if you're looking for GT racing but preferring an older car, well, how about we invite you to the format of GTE racing, as we have just wrapped up Season 1 of our GT Championship on Friday evenings. But I'm very pleased to say we will be back for Season 2 at the end of March. And then with the all-new physics and time model for the GTEs, Season 2 is very much lined up to be an exciting one. But if you're looking for something far more casual, you just want to dip your toes into league racing, because not everyone's got experience in it. Maybe you've just raced in officials and want to see what a league format is like. Well, you've always got the free to join Practice League, which does run on Tuesday evenings, Wednesday evenings, and Saturday afternoons. So there's never been a better time to be on the grid here at SimRacing International. We'd also like to take this moment to say a huge thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include Carmate, Modern Technology, the GP2 Group, and lastly, but by no means least, we'd like to give a big shout out to Motorsport UK's esports division, because we're very grateful for their recognition of us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community, and long may that continue throughout 2026 and beyond. We're very grateful for that status. But ladies and gentlemen, now, of course, we've wrapped up our penultimate round. There's only one more to go, and next time, I'm very pleased to say, we invite you to come tune in live from the circuit side, not post-round, live on Sunday, the 15th of March, 2026, as we head to the Autodromo International Enzo E. Dino Ferrari for our season finale there. And in Italy, we're going to wrap things up, and someone is going to be our champion across our Elite, Pro, Inter, and Teams Championship titles. And in Elite, it does seem as though Andrea Miazzo has the lead. However, there is a small cloud hanging over him with the way he took victory today at the Misano circuit. Will that victory stand? And if so, what will the points gap be to the man who retired today of William Arneson? Can he somehow provide an upset at Imola? Meanwhile, in the Pro class, Kyle Roy looks all set right now with a second place today, and Nathan Anstis and Sean Connor struggling. Will it stay that way, or will there be one last twist in the towel? And as for Inter, Is it going to be Andrew Montaigne or is it going to be none other than Robin Powney? It's between those two all the way to the finish. And in the Teams Championship, is it going to be Axis in Sport Z who hold on, or will Beta Frost, after their turmoil with the last lap today, will Beta Frost be able to find a way to very quickly steal away that crown? Well, for all that and more, come tune in live next time as we bring you all the race concluding action at Imola. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been SimRacing International. You've been tuning in to Season 17 of the UK SimRacing Sunday GT3 Championship, and I have been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. And until our final round, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.